next to him. The replay. Pavia throws. Touchdown, Vanderbilt.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Handoff inside. Russell. No, on the outside. Touchdown. Singleton keeps it and scores. Malachi Singleton off the bench has put Arkansas in front from 11 yards.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Canes threatening to make it a one-possession game. Ward, a lot of room. He's going to run it. Cam Ward, open area. Touchdown, Miami. 24 yards on the run.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Moss to the end zone, intercepted. Coy Parrish. And the Gophers beat USC, 9 seconds away from doing that for the first time since 1955.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Le'Veon Moss, and A&M just keeps rolling. Look at big Le'Veon Moss. He's going to house it to open up the second half. The Aggies can do no wrong today.
Now here's Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, Emery Winter here on a Smokeless Friday. And guess what, guys? I was tired of running out of brands to make my smokeless tobacco fake ad jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So I have looked up 1930s and above.
No, you didn't.
I absolutely did. So Smokeless Fridays, brought to you by Yankee Girl Tobacco.
That's a new one.
Yeah. I mean, it's not new.
Well,
It's an old one. Yeah, it's new. It's new by this. But Yankee Girl Tobacco for that top of the morning feel. Yankee Girl Tobacco. Available wherever diapers are sold. So I have several of these to do throughout the show. But that was the first one I wanted to do, but I cannot wait. The next one I'm very excited about. It's one I think that people have heard of. I've never heard of Yankee Girl Tobacco.
I never have either.
I'm not a tobacco user, never have been a tobacco user, so I don't know, but it does fit in with my Smokeless Fridays. There's also, you know what? There was also snuff. Did you ever see, have you seen Inglourious Bastards?
Yes.
So, in Inglourious Bastards, that's what Aldo does. He sniffs tobacco.
Yeah.
Which
no.
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. It makes me sick to my stomach to think about it, just like some of our topics today. And we'll get into the smokestack in a second. But by the way, college football last night, there were 3 games. The one that jumped out at me most was I thought Coastal Carolina could hang with James Madison.
Mm-hmm.
No.
James Madison's good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. That G5 spot in the playoffs is going to be really interesting when it comes down to Army and Navy right now.
Yep.
James Madison, Boise State. I don't think Liberty's reasonable. I think
Liberty shouldn't even get a consideration.
No, they're not even trying to beat somebody good. I mean, James Madison beat North Carolina, put up 70 on North Carolina. That's where you get consideration. Mm-hmm. Boise State, beat Washington State. They've played Oregon and played Oregon well.
They should have beat Oregon.
They could have had Oregon. So Liberty is but we didn't lose.
Cool.
Yes, because you plotted it out exactly that way.
Yeah, might as well play high school teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is, and then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Liberty fans, pounding their chest. They're like, "Oh, we need to get in. We need to get in." So, but much like the son of your founder and now former president, you'll just be voyeurs. Anybody? Anyone?
That went over my head.
Anyone on that one?
That went over my head.
Anyone on that one?
Totally over my head.
Anyone? Nobody knows about Jerry Falwell Jr. and what his proclivities are? No one? No one?
No.
Okay.
No,
well, if you got that joke in the chat room, you and I can be friends. There's a whole Hulu documentary about it, and watch it and prepare for the
Are these the people from Liberty?
These are the Falwells that founded it, and they were
Yeah, I don't trust
Jerry
anybody
Falwell
like that.
Jr. is no longer in his position at Liberty because of these things.
Oh,
yes. So, yeah. So there we go. Oh man. Okay. So let's get into it. The Legion of Doom met, and that's the Big Ten and SEC, met in Nashville. Interesting line from SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey on looking ahead to CFP changes. This just has to go incredibly well. This has to be a successful launch. This isn't the time to talk about governance in 26 or format in 26, but the immediate implementation is in front of us. Follow that up with Ralph Russo responded to that tweet, and Scott Dochterman will be with us in about 20 minutes. The selection committee is really on notice, and I'm not sure it's fair because everybody is ready to pounce from different angles. So what does this mean? Let me translate the Sankey for you. This is from Ross Dellinger's article. Put simply, the Big Ten and SEC plan to reshape college athletics. They're the drivers of the car now, the operators of the machinery, the captains of the ship. This we already knew. Here's another quote from Greg Sankey, and this is in Ross Dellinger's article about it. Amidst Sankey offered sharp criticism about the timing of the release of the announcement of Project Rudy in college sports tomorrow. I don't think it's a coincidence that they ramped up their public relations scheme around our meeting.
Scheme?
Scheme.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's there's a word. There it is right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Most, if not all, the concepts proposed can be done by the two leagues or the power conference as a whole, says Tony Petitti. I have yet to see anything in any plan that we couldn't do ourselves. It's basically scheduling more good games and reorganize the way you play those games. Okay. And what of bowl games? It remains uncertain, but as one leader told Yahoo Sports recently, the days of schools losing money by playing in bowl games is over. So I guess that's good news. But not if you're the Yankee Girl Tobacco Bowl.
Right.
That one's not going to happen. So that's probably not good news. But we'll see how that goes. So what I'm going to translate this out to you is that Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti are coming out and saying nothing is going to happen unless we want it to. Number two, Greg Sankey is telling the committee, you have to get this right. And if you think, Paul, you're nuts, why would he do that? He doesn't need to do that. And telling the committee you need to get this right, does that mean making sure that maybe a deserving ACC or Big 12 team gets in over an equally deserving SEC team when you flip a coin? Or does that mean, oh, you saw what I did to Tallahassee? I broke those sumbitches. I broke them. So I'll do it to everybody.
Yeah.
This is the SEC gets everybody the SEC wants, and then you can start filling it in. That's what that is to me.
That's what I interpreted it too, because what they were wanting the 4 automatic bids for each conference, right? Like the SEC and Big Ten automatically get 4. That's what they were pushing for. I think that's kind of how you look at this, is saying you better get it right. You better make sure that we have at least 3 or 4 coming out of our conference. You better make sure the Big Ten has 3 or 4 coming out of there, and then let everybody else just kind of lay as it be. They're just, this is a power move. This is all this is. It's them letting them know that we're not going to be challenged by anybody. Everything, the future of college football is going to run through us. And there's no bows about it. They're not hiding anything. It's blatant. It's very disturbing kind of where we're at right now with this, but yeah, they're not hiding anything. They're letting you know, they're letting the committee know that you better make this where we are at the forefront of it. Let everybody else fall in behind us because we run everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that to me is the really scary part.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's where you get closer and closer, and when people tell you what their intentions are,
Listen.
you should believe them. You should listen to them, that this is what they are. And they are getting more and more thinly veiled. Like the curtain's down.
Mm-hmm.
The curtain's down. And I have a hard time, and I'm not a conspiracy guy, mostly because really well thought out conspiracies like involve about 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you get over 6, hard to really maintain.
Yeah, loose lips.
Exactly. That's why anybody who believes the moon landing is fake or the earth is flat, it's not like there's too many people that would have to keep that secret, like for the moon landing alone, I saw a documentary on it, and it was basically like 15,000 people would have to have agreed to keep that secret.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. So, and like with the flat earth, like why would every boat captain have to
Yeah, that one's like, I could get down with the moon landing more than the flat earth thing.
Yeah, I
definitely could.
Yeah, the moon landing, here's the thing though, the moon landing disproves the flat earth.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So I'm not a conspiracy guy. But I'm not I don't think there's a lot of cabals of things going. Like even the stuff that tries to be a conspiracy in politics, again, we know about almost all of them, right? They all come out. Like then it's, can you stop it? Like, can you vote against something that you don't like, or can you do this? But most of the things are at least out there. Like you would know, kind of know like who's pulling strings. Because again, like they're not like, especially like really wealthy people are not obvious about what they want.
Yeah.
Especially now. So they may not do a lot of interviews, but it's not, when you see how much money they spend on a certain thing, it's not like their intentions are cloudy. Like, hey, he gave all this money to this super PAC for this guy. Gee, I wonder how he feels about this issue. You're like, well, I think
Yeah.
I think the check said it all the way around. And what Greg Sankey and Tony Batiti are saying is that our intention is this. This is who we want to be. This is where we're going to go. If the other 2 conferences are involved, good for them. If they're not, then that's fine with us too. We don't care. And it's a very bleak look for the future of college athletics when you have 2 of the power brokers just straight up saying, it all runs through us and we don't care. And look, if they decide to do this on their own, as long as it's inclusive, I'm okay if we have that. Where I will stop is that an SEC and Big Ten Super League, if Greg Sankey and Tony Batiti and the television networks think that is the best thing, or a Super League in general of 24 or 32 teams that is the best brands, if they think that is beneficial to college football in the slightest and college athletics in the slightest, they are wrong. They are dead wrong. And college football is about regionality. Like, it's about that. Like, there are that's why I think they're going to run into with these big conferences, and we've talked about it a lot, where eventually, like, ACC fans are like, yeah, I just don't get excited about playing Cal. The Pac-12 is the best example of it. They tried to force Colorado on 2 or 3 different people as the rival, and they're like, the convenient thing was like, oh, Oregon, legal weed bowl. Like, that's going to be the thing. And neither Colorado or Oregon fans felt any kind of way about each other. Like, yeah, we want to win the game, but
right. There's no personal. There's not a vendetta or anything. Yeah.
This isn't the border war or anything like that. Like, this isn't, all of that. Like, this isn't, what do they call Oregon State? Why am I? It's not the border war.
Oh, the Civil War?
The Civil War, yeah. This isn't the Civil War to us. This isn't Washington. This isn't USC. Like, maybe 50 years from now, over 50 games.
Yeah, but it's going to take that.
Something's going to happen repeatedly that makes it that. But you can't just decide it's a rivalry.
Right.
They try to do it, like the SEC experienced this a little bit, and I would say it's like on the secondary tier, but A&M and LSU, like,
well, even a step further, it was A&M and South Carolina. Remember?
A&M and South Carolina. We're going to build that rivalry.
Yeah.
And both of them were like,
okay,
all right. I mean,
because A&M went out. Remember, they did the yell at the Capitol and all that that first night. They were trying to make it something, and it just never evolved. And they never really played each other consistently either.
Yeah, you know what's the funny thing? Like, it wasn't a back and forth, series either. Like it was, like the only game I remember was Kenny Hill going out and having this monster game before his A&M career came to a screeching halt in front of my eyes in Tuscaloosa. Like, you watched it and you're like, yeah, he's not playing again.
Yeah, he tried to go with the Kenny Trill thing.
No, he's come a long way since then. Like, he's coaching and all that, but that was, like, looking back on it, was hard to, like, it's a painful thing to see because you just watched a kid like, oh, well, this is over.
Yeah.
Like, it was over. Absolutely over. Alabama just, like, took him and, like, like Godzilla. Dropped down the parts they didn't want. It was crazy. So you can't just create things. And that's the thing, if they put let's just say it's just the SEC and Big Ten, and the only way they can get it done and the only way they have enough support is to drag along the teams that are not the big brands. Purdue, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, all kind of band together and be like, listen, we're not going to vote for this unless we are guaranteed a spot.
See, I wouldn't have a problem with the Super League if it was like just 32 teams that were like the bluest of the blue bloods, and then everybody else played like a traditional college football. I think you could make it work like that.
I still don't really want to see that. Like, because then you're taking away that. And like, part of it is that the blue bloods are saying, well, it's okay. Like, it's okay if we lose to LSU. It is not okay if we lose to Vanderbilt.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's Bro, a loss is a loss. Yeah. Like, I know that it's not the same, and I know that, but I find that, like it is. It's every fan base has a team they look down on, and you say you shouldn't lose to this, but that's all changing right now. Like, that is all, like, Alabama and Vanderbilt is not the only upset that's happening. No. There's a lot of them happening. There's a lot of closer games than used to be happening because of the distribution of talent now. So college football is getting better in a lot of regards, and then they're still trying to ruin it in my eyes. Because if they want to do that, so if you see that, you're going to run into the same problem, because you're going to have people, at Washington going, well, I don't care about Vanderbilt or Kentucky. Like, is that who we're playing this week?
Right.
Like, all right.
But I mean, I also think, though, if you did that and you created a Super League and then you took everybody else, you could go back to more regionality. I think you could create that regionality again and have it spur off like that. And I think you could have success with it. And I'm also one that I believe the G5 should have their own thing.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think if you want to separate off the G5 because there's no way that they can keep financially competitive in this, there's no way. I really like Joe Moglia's proposal, where it was like, this is one subdivision, this is the other one, and break up the FBS. I'm for that. I'm just not for a 32 team Super League.
Right.
I'm not for that. I just don't. I think you leave too much out of it. Like, because if I want to see good games, like, there are teams. I don't want NC State not to be in that. They've won some big games in their life. I don't want Texas Tech not to be in that. I don't want TCU or Baylor or teams that have competed for the college, Cincinnati, like teams that have been in the college football playoff or been in the consideration for it, to just all of a sudden not be in it because, again, of a decision made 100 years ago. Like, that's the other thing that's ridiculous in all of this. And so they're just sitting there right now telling you that this is how it's going to be. So I wanted to spend a lot of the time, the first part of the show, talking about it, because, again, like, if as college football fans, we are not in a lot of control of this. We are not in any control of it. They're going to do whatever they think our TV eyeballs are going to watch until our TV eyeballs aren't going to watch that anymore. And so right now, every bet they make has paid off because they can set up games and ratings where it's going to be big and they know how it works. But you can put a lot of games on a network spot in a primetime space, and it doesn't have to be Alabama versus Tennessee.
If it's on the right network, it's going to draw.
It's going to run the right network. It's going to draw a lot of eyes anyway. Now it may not draw as many eyes as Ohio State, Michigan 3 weeks later.
No.
But if you put Indiana and Nebraska at 3:30 on CBS, people are going to watch that game. Maybe it's not as big a deal because Indiana is not as big of a brand, or people have forgotten how good Nebraska used to be or how good they are right now. But that game's next week.
They have a hell of a fan base. They'll show up. That to me is maybe the best game of next week. It's Nebraska and Indiana. Both of them are off this week and they play next week. It's an 11 o'clock kick. I guarantee it's going to get a great number. It's going to get a great number. But I do think that that would be one I would want, certainly out in front somewhere for sure. But there could be that. So I don't know. But Urban Engine, by the way, tells me to stick to sports and says the logic is stupid AF. 15,000 people can't keep a secret. 15,000 of how many people? Never mind the fact that 15,000 people can all share the same secret without even knowing each other. No. All it takes is one of those 15,000 to be like, hey, by the way, the moon landing was fake. Yeah.
No, that's no. A multi-level conspiracy, I'm guessing he's a flat earther or a moon landing was fake guy. So, I don't know. You can't, there's too many. The more people are involved in something, the more chance you have to lose the.
You just have to have the leverage.
Okay.
If you have the leverage.
Let me tell you this. What Texas, and I'm going to stick to sports there, Urban Engine. I'm going to throw this out there.
Go for it.
Texas and Oklahoma.
Okay.
How many people you think knew about that until Brent Zwerneman? I guarantee you it was less than 10.
Oh, probably.
Because you know who didn't know about it? Bob Bowlesby.
Nope.
The commissioner of that league. So I'm thinking it's a couple people at Texas, a couple people at Oklahoma,
and
Greg Sankey and ESPN.
Yup.
That's who I bet knew about it. I'm betting no one else did.
No.
Because if you get outside of that circle,
you're screwed. It's not happening.
It wouldn't have been if Bob Bowlesby had found that out, that they were trying to do that before they'd actually made the deal, it would have taken a lot longer, and there would have been a lot
more money to get out too.
Oh yeah, a
lot more.
They did it all, and all of a sudden it was introduced. Okay, so if you expand that circle out to more than a few people, it's getting out. It is getting out, and whoever told Brett Zwerneman about it
was told to probably
told to. Was okay, pick somebody and go. So. And it wasn't Texas or Oklahoma that he got it from, and it wasn't A&M that he got it from. It was somebody, I think, at the SEC who was okay, we're going to do this. This is going to be our thing. So, yeah. I don't know. I think that you, doing this, there's not, that's why I said there's no grand conspiracy here. But 15,000 people can share the same secret. No. Not when they're all involved in the same, it's the same thing. 15,000 people can all, have the same exact secret about, something about their life, right? Something about who they are, that is the same, but they're not the same person, But, yeah, no. That's not flawed logic. That's logic. The more people you involve in something, the bigger chance it has of being exposed. So, yeah, no. But, yeah, that's why it's Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti and, they're surrogates.
And that's it, yeah.
And that's it. That's why they're not involving Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips, because they want an opportunity to move on without them if it's presented to them, if it works out for them. That's what I'm saying here. So, real quick, let's get through the rest of this.
Okay.
Because otherwise, why did we even send it? Some news and notes. Purdue quarterback Hudson Card out this week. Freshman Ryan Brown will make his first start against Illinois, which is not.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Which is not a great team. They're tough, man. Illinois is really tough, and they're physical and and they're mad, and Purdue's been shaky. Hudson Card hasn't the offense wasn't obviously great.
Yeah, Graham Harrell's gone. So
yeah, we saw. Were you there at that state championship game that he came in?
Hudson Card?
Yeah, when he was at Lake Travis.
I remember.
So they lost to Allen.
I don't remember. I wasn't at that one.
It was right before Midway lost to
Longview.
Cy-Fair.
Yeah.
To Cy-Fair. It was the game that was right before it at AT&T Stadium. And he was the sophomore, and I think it was Charlie Brewer. Charlie Brewer was hurt and went out, and then Hudson came in and played unbelievable. Was great, and he was like already like everybody's like, well, he's going to commit to Texas.
Yeah,
and then 6 months later, it's like Hudson Card's committed to Texas, and you're like, oh.
The one I remember like that was the one with when Stowers got hurt and Eli. What's his name at Oklahoma that just got benched? Came in and took over. That's
Jackson
Arnold. That's the one I remember.
Yeah. No, this is a different one. All right, Ross Dellinger, former LSU team captain Greg Brooks is suing LSU and its affiliated medical center per documents. He accuses coaches, trainers of negligence and claims a surgeon left him permanently disabled a year after surgery to remove a brain tumor. Brooks can't walk. Oof.
Yeah, this is an ugly story. You don't want to judge anything in a circumstance like this, but there's some interesting nuggets in Ross Dellinger's article. Like he was having issues in practice. They ran a concussion scan on him, and it showed up negative. The next day he was out there, he was having vertigo symptoms. I don't know. He's claiming that LSU forced this surgery on this one specific doctor, and he never was allowed to get a second consultation. At the same time, I think that's something where you and your family, whether it's a medical situation, should probably get involved more and dig a little deeper into that. But I don't really know what the full circumstance. It just sucks all the way around. Greg was a really good player, and you just hate for a circumstance like this to unfold for anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it really does. So hopefully maybe he can get better or something like that. I don't know, but
I don't know.
It doesn't sound good. All right, USF, the American Conference, announced that the game between South Florida and Memphis has been moved to Camping World Stadium in Orlando. Camping World used to be called the Citrus Bowl, so they're not playing at the Bounce House. Believe me, that's not going to happen. Like, even in the most generous of times, like, it's not going to happen. They're going to play in Orlando. Tampa made it through better, I think, than they thought they were in this hurricane, but there's still a lot of devastation along the coast there in Florida. Central Florida kind of took it a little more on the chin than I think they were, but Orlando, for the most part, I've talked to friends in all parts of it. Haven't heard a lot from Fort Myers yet. They're still trying to pick themselves off the mat too. But that game's going to be in Orlando. Actually, my college roommate, I talked to him during the hurricane. He's like, yeah, our power's out. I'm like, well, don't let me waste your battery. So I sent him a text, and then they got power back last night and came through all right. But the river near their house is like really high, and he's like, there's helicopters like all the time. So, okay. We're going to go to break. We'll do these college basketball notes a little bit later in the show.
Do you want to do that video real quick?
Yeah, show this video. This is former LSU running back Ali Broussard talking about what it was like when you fumbled the ball under Nick Saban.
Freshman year against Arizona, I had 2 fumbles. The first game being national televised, 2 fumbles. And that second fumble, I just looked up. I'm on the ground. I could see like steam coming out his ears. I'm just hoping the ground would have just sucked me in. I didn't want to get up. So I get up. He just chewing me out. But then that whole week before the game, walking around campus holding the football. And whoever would take the football out, I would have to probably run laps. But I remember that moment. I just had to carry the football in class. So I'm sitting in class trying to do a test, and the guys trying to knock the ball out.
That reminded me of Omar Epps in the program. 100%,
okay,
dude.
So what came first? Coaches making players do that, or the program and then coaches making players do that?
I think
probably
it had to
coaches
come
first.
from
Had to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
It did, but the fact that you can hear that in real life, that like Omar Epps in the program was a real thing.
You just see that. I just saw the scene of him, all the desks are flying everywhere and he gets the ball. He's looking up at the teacher. Like, it was just funny as hell.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. No. Omar Epps came out good in that movie. He got Halle Berry.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good
He had
deal.
a good run of movies.
Yeah. He done that, like that one. I mean,
Program's my favorite football movie. Hands down.
Oh.
Hands down.
Who's your favorite character? I tell you my least favorite one, it's Joe Kane. Don't like,
Man,
he just like, I wanted him to be back and all, but like I was kind of annoyed. But
my favorite character, I don't want to say Latimer
It's
because
Latimer.
he's a. I mean, I know
It's Latimer.
Like, I saw
It's
the video
okay.
of painting his face today and everything.
Hey, okay, who's your favorite character in The Dark Knight? It's the Joker.
Yeah,
so
it's
like,
got to be Latimer. I mean,
Yeah.
he's God. When he's like first string, goes out beating his head into the glass.
Yeah.
He's a trip, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. So by the way, before we go to break and then get Scott on, I love whenever I call out conspiracy theorists that one of them will be like, no, you're the conspiracy theorist, man.
God.
I love that. Like that, it's like a dog whistle. You dog
Reverse
whistle
psychology.
out to them. Like, hey, man, 15,000 people can keep the same secret. Like, no, absolutely not.
It'd be tough.
Yeah.
Tall task.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Scott Dochterman, he was there in Nashville, and now he's waiting in Dallas, which I think is in the opposite direction of where he lives. Got to love those airlines. This is 365 Sports.
PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Hi, this is David Smoke. As you get older, usually upper 30s, but most likely in your 40s and eventually the 50s, when you get your testosterone checked, 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have low testosterone levels. It's part of father time. It's just living life. And that clock starts to tick. Maybe you're fortunate it doesn't have any effect on you. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Tell them I sent you. They will set you up to get your blood work. If they get the results Dr. Petty does, he'll look at them, and then if you need testosterone boost, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get ready to rule the road in a brand new 2024 Ram 1500 with an amazing 20% off MSRP. Or drive away with 0.9% financing for 72 months. Don't miss out on unbelievable savings. It's all happening right now at Allen Samuels.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Texas, there's pea-size hail and baseball-size hail. Guess which one hit our house? We didn't even know where to begin, but we called our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent, and he was so reassuring. He knew exactly what to do to get our house back into shape and our lives back to normal. Now, we're even more thankful for the roof over our heads.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
with a bank, you should expect the best of everything. That includes face-to-face personal service and the kind of community banking care that only comes from one neighbor to another. That's exactly what you'll get from the First National Bank of Central Texas, where you will know your banker works just as hard as you do. Once again, that's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Settle for nothing less than the first. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back. Paul Catalina here on 365 Sports. And Scott Dochterman of The Athletic joins us now. And Scott, you were in Nashville for, I've called it the Legion of Doom meeting between Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti and the Big Ten and the SEC. I ask everybody who's kind of been around this question because I'm curious on where the opinion goes on it. I get the feeling that Greg Sankey does not have anything else other than the SEC's best interest at heart when he says or does things, even though he will say that, no, I do care about the greater interest of college athletics. After this week, I really feel like that's been maybe even more solidified in my mind. Am I wrong? Am I out there just worried about the boogeyman or no?
No, I think you're onto something there. I mean, I think both of them are interested in preservation of college athletics to some extent and how they can reform it. Some of the comments I haven't quite got to yet regarding the NCAA and the changes there. I mean, they're very profound and there's going to be massive change there. But I think both commissioners, both Craig Sankey and Tony Petitti, their best interests are to serve their constituents, their conferences, and those two have separated themselves in every single way possible. And the fact that they're working together, it's kind of like there are a lot of historical meetings and decisions made. I don't know that I want to go into some of the descriptions I've thought of, but dividing the world in half. But I do think that but they are meeting. Yesterday in particular, it was a lot of it was about how they work together and how these schools work individually after, now with the House case fallout. And a lot of it was just kind of like, when a lot of us journalists get into a bar and start talking about shop, and that's kind of what they did, except they didn't really have the alcohol that day. Yeah. And they're just trying to get some of their ideas out there. So, yeah, I mean, they definitely do have the best interest of their leagues, but I think they do have an eye on the entire operation of college athletics.
Greg Sankey is not a fan of any of these College Sports Tomorrow or Project Rudy proposals, is he?
Neither one of them are.
Yeah.
They both shot him down yesterday vividly. I mean, Tony was kind of more on the side of, hey, we could do any of this if we wanted to. We don't need a private equity firm to come and, float a bunch of money and then own us, to do this. And then Sankey was even more pointed with a lot of his comments. He was not enamored, and he's like, it's no coincidence that they released these plans right before we were getting ready to meet. They wanted to try to get everybody to talk about this, and they just don't have any interest whatsoever in reorganizing the sport because, let's face it, they make the most money. They have the brands that they want under their tent. If they want other brands, they'll acquire them. They have no interest in sharing that with anybody. And why would they if they're sitting in that position? So I think that it's, we're years away. I mean, we're another lawsuit where everybody goes bankrupt away for something like this actually happening.
So what do you feel that they think is the long-term future? Do they have a plan, or is this still, because that's where I get lost in all this of, do the leaders of this sport really have at least a broad strokes idea that everybody can get on board with of what the long-term future of this is?
I don't think they have a plan yet because it's everything is still happening. The House case was just approved earlier this week. They're trying to figure out how are they going to make sure that all these coaches know exactly how many scholarships they're going to have, how much money they're going to be able to pay. Are they going to have to pay it based on male-female student-athlete ratio, or can they do it on marketability? I mean, there's a lot of really big, important questions that are coming to bear in very soon. And same thing with 2026 with the college football playoff landscape. But I think what they're doing is they're kind of setting the table for how they divide and conquer in 26 and beyond, which is not only through the college football playoff, but also the fact that these two large entities that have been, geographical rivals for well beyond college sports history, are now going to work together and that includes having more games against one another, more postseason action against one another, probably how they're going to figure out what they want to collectively do in the college football playoff. So that's really kind of, they're laying the groundwork for how they go about this in the future.
One of the things I read in Ross Dellinger's column, and I know you were there for this too, but one source is saying that the days of college teams losing money on bowl games are over. So what does that mean for the future of the majority of these bowl games?
Well, finally, the leagues and the schools have realized that they're more important than the bowl games. Mm-hmm. I mean, the years of, hey, we're going to go there, we're going to have a good time, and then they're going to make us, take 20,000 tickets and try to sell them in the worst parts of the stadium, and they're going to take 600 people from the university down there, and lo and behold, they end up $300,000 in the hole. I mean, the schools have realized that's just not feasible anymore. It's a ridiculous way to go when they can do all of it themselves. They could rent the facility. They could set somebody up in charge and take care of it, but they don't really want to. I think in the Bulls case, there's a history and a tradition there that they don't necessarily want to disrupt. But I think the system itself is that, hey, we'll pick who we want to go there. And I think one of the areas that is going to, my guess is, and this has not been specifically mentioned, but is maybe a way to get the SEC to 9 conference games. Will be allowed have some of the schools possibly participate at 5 wins, because I think some of the schools that have sat out and not wanted, to go to 9 games have done so because out of fear that they're not going to go to bowls. And I think if they could remove that, and if the SEC tells the bowls and tells the NCAA that's what we're going to do, then that's what they're going to do.
Mm. God, I hate that. I mean, it just, like, all these things, it just seems so unilateral, Scott. And mm-hmm. It's bleak to me a little bit that, you have, over 140 schools that are part of this, but only 16 to 20 of them are really allowed to make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, these two conferences are dictating the terms, and a lot of it has come from the acquisitions of the last 15 years through realignment. I mean, I had the Pac-12 figure out its philosophy with Larry Scott, not completely imploded, had Oklahoma, Texas, Nebraska decided to stay with the Big 12. Then you would have all had like the heads of the 5 families or something in the Godfather series. I mean, you would have had, everybody could have been a counterweight against one another. But as these brands, these leagues acquired those kinds of powers, that the other schools are kind of powerless to stand up against them. I think, though, there's tiers. Unfortunately, the Big 12 and the ACC are a little bit behind the ACC and SEC when it comes to decision making and power struggle. And then you have the group of 5 schools that are substantially down from that. And maybe that isn't such a shame, because there's this growth, of teams moving up from FCS to FBS, but they're not the same. I mean, those schools moving up are not the same as Alabama or Michigan or Ohio State or Georgia. I mean, they're 2 different worlds. So I think it's unfortunate that this has gotten to be such a heavy power struggle, but I also think it's kind of the reality of where we live today.
Yeah. What did you make of Sankey's comments of, it's too early to talk about 26 and look-ins and governance and all that? We have to get this right this year. Is there more to that?
Yeah, I think people are interpreting that maybe a little bit wrongly, and because Petitti said the same thing, and it really wasn't about making sure that I would say from the SEC perspective, wasn't necessarily about that they need to get 5 or 6 teams in and do that. I think it's really about a logistical situation, about making sure that these teams have that the teams that host, everything goes off, swimmingly well, and that's going to be a challenge. I mean, you figure at least one of the sites will probably be in the north in the middle of December, and you never know what kind of weather you're going to get. You're going to get it during graduation weekends and all those things that everybody conveniently overlooks. I mean, hotel shortages, and I think that's what they're looking at right now. It's like, let's not talk about 26 until after we go through this experience. So with that, in this situation, I think that he was being earnest about the upcoming playoff. I mean, I think Petitti's line was a little bit more pointed that, he wants to see how the committee interprets everything. And meaning that if the Big Ten has a 10-2 team that gets beaten out and had some quality games, then maybe that'll shake him in the direction of how he wants to proceed for 26 and beyond. But overall, there's a lot of logistics that they want to just make sure everything's going right, because the schools themselves, the ones that are going to host, they're the ones that are kind of worried about that.
Scott, when it comes to automatic qualifiers, I've always been of the belief that is the negotiating ploy to get what they really want out of it, because if you have to guarantee qualifiers in something, then you don't get the max of what you want. So if they're going to guarantee the SEC 4 and say the Big Ten 4 and the other one's 2 each, and they expand to 6, whatever it is, that they expand to 16, well, that means that they can't have 5 or 6 if they deserve it. So to me, that would be counterintuitive to Greg Sankey's, plot for domination, because he might wind up by saying it has to be 4 SEC teams, cutting off the possibilities of a year where he could have half the field.
Yeah, I think it depends on how big it's going to get. I mean, I would anticipate it going to 14. I think that's probably the most likely scenario. And the automatic qualifiers, I think that they'll probably start talking about 4, and it'll go to 3 for those 2 leagues, and then 2 each for the ACC and Big 12, 1 for the Group of 5, and then 3 open at-large spots outside of that. That's my guess and what's going to happen in the future with the playoff. Now if it goes to 16, then yeah, I do think then it'll be 4. But I don't think there hasn't been much discussion about that. That's probably a next time around in the early 2030s. But I think that automatic qualifiers are coming because especially if the SEC goes to 9 games. There is a concern that, they beat each other up, that these highly ranked teams, and you have a 9-3 team, and, what happens if 9-3 Georgia doesn't get in, but 10-2 Clemson does? I mean, that's kind of what they're pointing to right now.
And lastly, what do you make? Like, Brett Yormark has always said that all of his moves right now are about the next media contract. Like, everything that they're doing is to enhance it so that when the next football contract comes up, they can take a chunk out of, maybe not take a chunk out of, but take a step towards being the Big Ten and the SEC financially. Do you think that timetable is reasonable for the Big 12 and the ACC, even though the ACC still has some other issues to work out, obviously, with some malcontents in their conference?
Yeah, there's multiple. I mean, I think they're completely different. I mean, leagues and what they have issues going on. But I'll speak, to the Big 12 that, right now what would behoove them the most is, I mean, they have these incredible competitive brands and teams, and they do well. And if 1 or 2 of them could advance in the playoff and compete at a high level, and then that will be helpful. If they can play what we expect is maybe the best brand of basketball in the country and succeed there, I think it positions themselves very well. I mean, I'm kind of curious as to, the flirtation with UConn to me doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right? mean, basketball-wise, just play them a couple of times. I don't know what in football they don't bring anything. So I think the Big 12 has done a decent job of that, and I think Yormark is bringing a fresh perspective, but it's still a little early on all of that. I think everybody wants to see just kind of go through the playoff structure at least once, and then probably expansion of the NCAA tournament, and then kind of go from there. But I think the Big 12, with its current alignment, is well positioned to make itself possibly the third most profitable league, and it won't get near the claim and financial stability of the SEC or the Big Ten, but it'll put itself in that position to where it'll be a strong, vibrant conference for years to come.
Absolutely. Well, Scott, have a safe flight home. Now, you were in Nashville, and you're waiting in Dallas now, and you live in Iowa, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. So we have
my fifth
have
grade
a direct flight.
Yeah, my fifth grade maps class tells me that Nashville to Dallas is in the opposite direction of Iowa.
Yeah, I know. I'm like in one of these obtuse triangles or something. But,
yeah.
The geometry, which I'm terrible at, even go back then. But no, I'll be heading back to Iowa and cover what I think will be a pretty interesting game on Saturday morning between Washington and Iowa football. I think that'll be a really good matchup. But yeah, I really wished I could have connected in, say, Chicago or Detroit as opposed to Dallas.
Yeah. Well, look, enjoy everything that we in Texas have to offer in the airport. So I'm sure it's glorious whichever one you're in.
DFW, baby.
Oh yeah, there we go. All right, Scott,
Yeah.
Travel safe. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
That's Scott Dochterman, The Athletic. That was, pretty deep stuff there. So didn't put my mind at ease much, but at least we kind of got I like the way he described all those things.
I like the clarity on interpreting, interpreting what Sankey was saying. I think that he brought some good clarity to that.
Yeah. So, all right. When we come back, it's Evan Abrams, right?
Yes, Evan.
Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ. He's going to join us. Then we'll have our weekly rankings with Peyton Sawyer. Maybe between that, we've got a short video with Jeremy Fudge.
That might come after Peyton. I was looking at that. I think we'll do that one after Peyton.
Okay, we'll do it after Peyton, and then Kenneth Davis and Josh Neighbors to wrap up the show later on in the top 5. That's all coming up. If you're a bettor, you better watch this one right now. This is a Smokeless Friday. Garrett, brought to you by 3 Jolly Boys. Chewing tobacco. Because there are 3 Jolly Boys in here right now.
Oh,
and I'm going to talk like this. We're 3 Jolly Boys, and we enjoy a good tobacco, sir. 3 Jolly Boys. 3 Jolly Boys tobacco. Have a good spit today. 3 Jolly Boys tobacco.
Have a good spit today.
This is 365 Sports.
There's nothing like a well-marbled, tender cut of beef. There's nowhere better to get that beef than straight from the ranch. Get the best quality steaks and burgers through Bid on Beef's online auctions, and especially featured right now this weekend at TexasBeefHouse.com. The ranch with Angus cattle, an unbelievable sale online right now for Angus and Wagyu beef. For example, Wagyu fillets, ribeyes, New York strips, top sirloin, Denver steaks, skirt steaks, flank steak, flap steaks, tri-tip roast, brisket, short ribs. I'm not done. Wagyu ground beef and also hamburger patties. Prime time. It's a package you can bid on with fillets and ribeyes. There's also the Angus roast, among many other choices. And back to Wagyu. How about Wagyu Korean-style ribs, Wagyu stew meat? All of that going on right now. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. You'll see the information on the auction that's going on right now through Saturday just after 6 o'clock. Bidding, and you pay what you want to pay, not what sticker price tells you to pay at a grocery store or a meat market. You pay what you want at TexasBeefHouse.com. Tell them 365 Sports and get $25 off the first $100, and it runs through Saturday just after 6 at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. Bird Colgan Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 selling truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, 47 years in a row. Come see the largest showroom in Texas and experience better at Bird Colgan Ford. Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend's Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Welcome in 365 Sports. Paul Catalina and Evan Abrams here with you. And Evan, last week was chaos, absolute chaos. It's ridiculous. Like, that's a week, I think we did talk about it, where, like, okay, bet carefully because it looks bland. Like, you'll be like, oh, well, I'll take Alabama, the points, no problem. And then, you know, when the chaos bug hits, it's wildfire, right? It's like all over the place.
We had mentioned, I think there was like 20 home underdogs last week. So, yeah, I mean, I think we ended up with 3 top 10 teams losing to unranked teams. First time that had happened since like 2016, I believe. And we almost had a 4th and should have had one at like 3 a.m. Eastern time. But just a chaotic weekend, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week is the juiciest week in college football maybe ever. Like, It is ridiculous, the games that we have. We have, and we'll start at the top, because when you've got 2 versus 3 teams that haven't played each other since a national championship game when they were in different leagues years ago in Dallas, a game I was there. Yeah, it was crazy. The 2 things I remember is Urban Meyer talking about his team like he was the manager of like a winning 4-H thing, where it's like, no, we've got good stock here. And I was like, man, that's a really cold way to look at this after you won the game. Like, it was just so robotic. Mark Helfrich being devastated, and then a ton of Oregon fans, the blonde guys with dreadlocks. Like, that was, sometimes you don't expect to see the cartoon version of something you think, and then you see it in real life and you're like, oh, that's based in reality. Okay. All right. So, but anyway, Oregon and Ohio State this week. Oregon, home dog. Ohio State, probably the deepest team in the Texas and Ohio State are deeper than anybody in the country this year. And that line is getting thinner and thinner in college football, but still very deep teams. How do you see this one, and where are the places to make money in a game like this?
Yeah, with Texas and Georgia on deck, it's hard to not love this matchup plus that next week. So it's just absolutely fantastic walking into this. But let's focus here. So Oregon -1 was the look ahead. Now Ohio State -3.5. So if you want to have like an understanding of where we were maybe preseason or a week or two ago when we were looking at a team, especially Oregon's gone through a bit of a downturn in terms of trying, they should have blown out teams early in the year and that just wasn't happening. So I think that's probably adjusted to this line a little bit. Now, you look at the markets, tickets, money, all over the Buckeyes. I don't think many people are giving Oregon a shot in this one, just based off what we've seen in terms of the completeness of Ohio State. One thing I will say about the market, right now, according to Action Network, our data, 21% of tickets are on Oregon at home. 21% to cover this game. Now, 25% or less at home for Oregon hasn't happened since 2009 in any home game. It has been a long time since they've not only been the home underdog, which we'll talk about in a second, but the fact they're just being overlooked in the market. Now, this isn't Bryant-Denny Stadium home underdog situation. This is a little bit different. It's been 33 consecutive games that Oregon has been the favorite at home in Austin. Now, since 2018 Washington, we kind of get the flip here. So, and if they close +4, which I don't necessarily think it's going to get there, it'd go all the way back to 2016 Washington in terms of the number. Now, when you look at the game itself, since 2018, the Buckeyes haven't been fantastic against the number in these big top 10 matchups. 6-13-1 against the spread, covering just 2 of their last 9 games in the spot. That's 6-13-1 ATS mark, second worst in all of college football, if you think about that, behind just Michigan State, 3-13 against the number. So not fantastic. But to me, the biggest key is avoiding turnover-worthy plays from a Buckeyes defense. They'll send pressure, cover zeros to get Gabriel on the move and through zone reads. I think that's probably going to help them if they're going to do it. Now, the quarterback runs also could open up holes in certain circumstances. I expect Jordan James to absolutely go nuts here. Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, I think they're going to be able to run a little bit. Here's the stat I like. Oregon has created an explosive run on 11 of 31 rushing attempts with James using power run. They are just running. I'm going to go with Oregon. I don't absolutely love it, but I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to assume that the home field and all of the above are going to get to them a little bit. So that's the number we're going with.
Whoa. Okay. Evan Abrams, Action Network. This is why we have this. This is why we educate here on this show. Red River, Texas and OU. This is a huge number for this game. A huge number for this game. A game that historically is always weird. And, a couple years ago, it was weird because there was a massive blowout. Last year was weird because nobody thought Oklahoma could really hang the same way, and then they win the game late. 3 years before that, it's the Caleb Williams Superman moment, all of those things. So we have all of this that's happened in this rivalry, and especially recently. But now we're getting a 2-score number in the game. That, to me, just as someone who's been to this game, who's covered this game a lot, who watches it, kick to end every single year, just would make me nervous as I was going to be like, yeah, give me Texas and the points.
I don't think you can take Oklahoma in this one, but I don't necessarily love laying the number either. So let me kind of walk through a few scenarios. So let's just talk about the line for a second. Look ahead was Texas -8.5 long time ago. Now 14.5. Now really, in terms of the markets, really tight all around. Everyone's seeing Texas, everyone's seeing Oklahoma, kind of bouncing back and forth. But you mentioned the number. Now historically, Oklahoma's been the better team like years ago. So Texas being a big favorite was really never something we had seen. So if you look since 1970, here are the biggest lines for Texas against Oklahoma. 96, they were -21. 1970, they were -17. 2005, they were -14. Those are the only 3 times they have been above 2 touchdown favorites. So we're going to fit probably in that 14-15 range in this one. So biggest favorite for Texas against Oklahoma probably since 1996 is what we're going to see here. Now, overall, the rivalry hasn't been much of one lately anyway. Texas is 4-11 straight up in their last 15 meetings versus Sooners, being a favorite in just 2 of those games. So we're just really looking at a complete script flip here. Now, in terms of the game itself and how the handicap goes, Texas has entered the red zone 27 times this year, resulting in 1 field goal and 24 touchdowns. Michigan, when they faced them, ranked 12th best defense nationally, but the Longhorns averaged 4.5 points per possession that crossed the 40-yard line, which is honestly a ton. So if the way I'm going to look at this is, I'm going to look for Texas's team total. I think they're going to put up points and put up points easily in this one. Think about this. 12 different players have logged a touchdown for the Horns this year. 9 players recording at least 2 touchdowns. They're going to spread it around. I don't think they're going to have any issue scoring. I just don't want to really get involved with the spread because, as you said, weird things happen. So let me just start rooting for points. Now, I would love that 30 range. I see it kind of moving up a little bit across the market. So please just shop the line.
All right. That is very good advice. Cause I mean, when it popped at 14.5, I was like, oh man, like what, like, and again, like it's tough. Cause I'm just looking at the history of the game. Like you said, it's mostly been in Oklahoma's favor, especially recently.
And then you look at the markets though, right? Like I said before, I think it's interesting to say you have tight markets here in really a situation where Texas is the much better team. You would assume the public would come in and be like, give me the Longhorns, doesn't matter the number. But that's not what's happening. So it gives me a moment of pause.
Yeah. USC at Penn State is a very interesting one to me. This is not a ranked, but like, you know, it's still like it's a huge game. It's even bigger for USC because they need to prove it against a Big Ten big boy. But this could already be their 3rd loss. And this is a very tough place to play, a very much improved offense under Andy Kotelnicki at Penn State. James Franklin has not really been great getting the, like those trophy name wins. And even though this is not, Caleb Williams USC from 3 years ago or classic USC, this is something that could boost him as he goes to play the Michigans and Ohio States and everybody else down the line. This one feels to me like it could be Penn State by a lot if USC doesn't score.
Yeah.
And given what they do well and don't do well, maybe it's going to be a good game, but I'm kind of leaning towards where Penn State has a seismic advantage in this one.
Yeah, let's just talk about the markets, and I'll get into the fact that I do kind of agree with you here. So look ahead was 4 for Penn State, down to 3.5. Everybody and their grandmother seems to be betting the Nittany Lions in this one. There's just not enough interest in USC in the market. I think you've got like 85% of the tickets right now in Penn State for us. Just nobody interested in the Trojans. And usually I would say, okay, maybe they're missing something. Like maybe I should be interested in USC, kind of like the situation we talked about a little bit ago when you've got a team who's getting no love. And I'm like, well, maybe I do like them a little bit. I just don't see it. So this will be Penn State's first game actually in MST or PST in terms of time zones since 2009. Been a long time since they've made this trip and did this type of scenario for the team because they just never would have. It would have been in the Rose Bowl, which was the exact scenario they were in. But if you think about it, the road really hasn't been too tough for Penn State, which is a nice thing because I like them in this matchup, but they're 13-5 straight up, 14-4 against the spread. It's like 18 road games dating back to 2020. Franklin's done an incredible job taking this team. And honestly, the team in the past that he's taken on the road during that, I don't think it's as good as the one he has now. So it really does kind of give me a lack of pause in wanting to go with Penn State. But I've said this trend before. I think it's actually worth repeating since it's honestly continued. Bet Labs, which is our proprietary software that kind of gives me some of these trends that I'm looking at. In lined games, USC 19-35 against the spread in games played outside Pacific Standard. They haven't done a great job this year. They haven't done a great job historically. Last 20 years, no USC head coach above 500 in that spot against the spread. So very difficult in that circumstance. Now you look inside the game. Aller has a PFF pass grade of 87.2 with an adjusted completion percentage of 77.6, both top 5 in EPA. So they've done, like you said, an incredible job. I just see no reason why USC would probably stay in this one. I like Penn State at the short number. I just, from an offensive line point of view, from the run game, and then you look at USC on the other side, struggling up front, 92nd in defensive line yards. I just don't know how they're going to stop them. So I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions and kind of hold my breath most of the game.
All right. Ole Miss and LSU. This one last year was the most ridiculously bonkers game. Garrett, who's decked out in his purple and gold today, LSU fan, our producer, he's reliving some trauma, and I hate to do that because I remember last year I was in Orlando, and I was in like in my buddy's swimming pool watching the game, and like I'm just watching my phone like light up of Garrett like
It was nuts, man. It was ridiculous.
Like my wife like, hey, who's texting me? She's like, Garrett. I'm like, why? And then she goes bottom right corner. I was like, oh crap. Yeah. So, but LSU. It looks like they're kind of finding their way a little bit since Caden Durham has stepped on the field. Their secondary is not classic LSU secondary. They've lost Harold Perkins for the year, but Blaine Baker has done an admirable job of piecing it together so far. Ole Miss has Trey Harris, who I don't think people are like, he's getting overshadowed by Genty and Travis Hunter and Cam Ward, but legit Heisman numbers he's putting up right now. Any other year, we'd probably be talking about Trey Harris a whole lot more.
Definitely.
Can LSU contain him enough to make this a game? And it is a rivalry game. It's a big deal to both of them. Can they show the vulnerable Ole Miss that we saw a couple weeks ago against Kentucky?
I feel like every time we're talking about any of these games now, we're just talking about a huge game and a home underdog. So
yeah,
it's just kind of crazy the way the market's working this week. But this is probably one of the more interesting lines. The fact that the look ahead was LSU minus 2.5. Now we got Ole Miss minus 3.5. So you have a complete change of how the view is of these teams all across the board. And then you look at the line and the markets all on Kiffin. Tickets, money, everything. People kind of interested in Ole Miss more than they are in LSU. I'm just not sure I agree. So Kiffin's never won in Baton Rouge. 0-2 straight up against the spread, losing by 15 points per game. Since 2019, he's done a good job when he's supposed to win on the road, though. 14-1 straight up, 11-3-1 on the number. But I'm not going to buy into it. I kind of like LSU in this spot. I'm going to go with the points, and here's a few reasons. So Kelly is a dog. 15-2 straight up, 12-5 against the spread, playing on extended rest, which is great. Now, you look at the situational spot. Tigers coming off a bye week to host a Rebels team playing their seventh straight game to start the season. And then you kind of look at the opponents. It's Kentucky, it's South Carolina, it's Furman, Middle Tennessee, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. It's just not this LSU team, and they already have a loss to talk about. So to me, the ups and downs having to go in a Baton Rouge, I'm just not a fan. I'm going to go with LSU here. Again, another game, and pretty much in most of these, where you're just going to have to hold your breath because I think you're going to get a decent amount of points. It's also the over I would tend to look at. I think under and Ole Miss just isn't going to be the result. So you'll at least split, in my opinion, but I do kind of like LSU in this one.
I think their under was 3 weeks ago against Kentucky. I think that's it. Like that was the one. That's the outlier.
Yeah.
Like their win or loss, it's going to probably be over for Ole Miss the rest of the way, right? So, all right, a couple of Big 12 games. The biggest one I think this week is K-State and Colorado. Colorado not yet ranked, but if they win this one, they sure as hell will be. They will be absolutely ranked. This is another one though, like, on the surface, seems like a bad matchup schematically for Colorado, as well as they played. But 2 weeks ago against UCF, they had a complete game. They slowed the run down. They ran the ball a little bit. I mean, we shouldn't give them a gold star for 120 yards rushing, but still it was 120 yards more than they've had in most of their games.
Correct.
So how do you look at Colorado and Kansas State, seeing it is at Folsom in Boulder, K-State has maybe more weapons or more kind of establishment than UCF has. They're more consistent. They had their blip on the radar against BYU a couple weeks ago. What are the numbers telling you here?
Yeah, the BYU game was just crazy. I think it kind of alters this a little bit more than we would expect because the look ahead was 6.5. Now it's Kansas State minus 3.5. It's basically a pick 'em game almost to that degree, as the fact that they're on the road. I think neutral site, you'd put Kansas State probably 5, 6, etc. So I think they're considered the better team. I think the way I would attack this one, you've had your Colorado up games, in my opinion. So I don't know if I'm like jumping at the gun to take the buffs here, but I do think the numbers moved down a little bit too much on the total. So look ahead was 58.5. Now at 56. I'm just going to look at the over in this one and assume on some level that both teams will find the end zone and that Shador and all those people and all that side will end up finding points on the board, maybe even through defense as well, through Hunter. But just a few numbers to get it here. So Dion is actually 10-6-1 ATS with Colorado, won and covered 3 in a row now. First time in Boulder, they've covered 3 in a row for the first time since 2020. So been a minute for them. And then you kind of look at the whole picture for Dion. So 17 games, 7 of those as a favorite, 10 as an underdog. He's 6-1 straight up as a favorite, 2-8 straight up as underdogs, coming off the underdog win in that spot to give them his second win. In my opinion, though, the over again, the play in Boulder, over 6-2 with Dion, going over by 8.2 points per game. They just find points there that they don't play as well on the road. But ultimately, the thing that probably just takes me to the play, Kansas State struggled to defend the slot all year. Failed to create a pass break in 159 coverage snaps from Marquise Single. That, to me, between Parrish, Garber, the responsible for Hunter have been allowed 34 of 51 targets to be caught. I think Colorado is going to find points, but I also think Kansas State will as well. So.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, this one's – it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. All right, some rapid fire real quick. You sent a couple. The one I'm kind of interested in, Iowa State remains undefeated. They against Baylor last week, they had a little rocky start, and then all of a sudden, like, okay, whatever was going wrong with this car is fixed now. The gunk's out of the engine, and they just hit the floor. West Virginia, tough place to play, Morgantown. Yeah. But they just are so remarkably efficient. This is probably not going to be like trying to pick points in Iowa State games is probably a fool's errand most times. West Virginia's good. They're not great. What do you see here?
Yeah, for like the millionth time, I feel like already another home dog, and also another home dog when it comes to West Virginia through Penn State and all these other. We've seen the role a few times now. But talking about just Iowa State, I love them entering the season. I was a big fan, and despite them even starting 5-0 for the first time since 1980, they just haven't necessarily lit the world on fire. They haven't looked fantastic. And even with a favorable schedule and the losses, including Baylor, Houston, their first 2 Big 12 games, it's just all over the board a little bit here. So the thing with West Virginia to keep in mind, their 2 losses have come against a pair of undefeated teams in Pitt, blew a 10-point lead with 3 minutes to go, and Penn State in their opener. With that said, I'll just take my chances with the home running dog here. Field goal, raucous place. And I'll give you the one stat that kind of gave me some pause. Under Matt Campbell, Iowa State has played 2 previous conference road games. When ranked inside the top 15, they lost both against Baylor and West Virginia. I need the 3, but I'll go mountaineering here.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to get them soon. Right?
Somebody has to. It's just they haven't played that well. So yeah. It's hard for me to take the other side. Let's make a comparison here. When you talk about the Penn State game, way more comfortable laying points there than I am with this Iowa State team. To me, it's similar line, different scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Clemson, Wake Forest. Clemson last week did not score touchdowns, kicked a lot of field goals. They missed a couple of field goals. That should give everyone pause if you're a Clemson fan for when they play an actual good team down the line, not my beloved Knowles. Yeah. But when they play an actual good team like Miami or someone, when it comes down to brass tacks. But Hank Bachmeier, experienced quarterback, Wake Forest, this is not the best version of themselves, but they're pulling off some wins too.
Yeah, I would be a little scared of the number itself. I kind of like the team total over for Clemson. I'm on Clemson futures from the preseason. I kind of assumed they were going to lose that first game. I bought in again, and they've been good ever since. But the 2 numbers I'll give you here, and believe this a little bit how you will, because the Clemson-Florida State game this year was not the game in the past. It used to be an emotional game. Both teams were really good. But it's worth noting, after facing Florida State, Dabo 15-0 straight up, 12-3 against the number, winning by 25 points per game. Dabo's been favored by an average of 17 points per game in the game after Florida State. So basically the same scenario here. And then you talk about this. Clemson's traveling from Tallahassee to Winston-Salem. Under Dabo, Clemson's undefeated, 5-0 straight up, 5-0 against the spread list as a double-digit favorite on a road trip. So they go on the road, they bring their guys, they're supposed to win, they're supposed to do their job, they end up doing it. And again, under that 10 mark, he's just 2-5. So I truly believe the line kind of tells the market here, but I'll just assume Clemson scores the points.
All right, Ashton Genty, my personal Heisman favorite right now. He's just doing crazy things. Boise's good team. what are the fun things going on around Ashton right now?
Yeah, so Boise hasn't lost to Hawaii since 2007, which kind of tells into how exaggerated the market might be for Ashton Jeanty right now. But let's just talk about him specifically. So 95 carries, over 1,000 yards, 10.9 per and 16 touchdowns. His 13-game projection is about 2,600 yards and 42 touchdowns. Now, I think everyone is comparing him to the Barry Sanders year in 1998. Barry, at that point, under him in terms of yards, under in terms of yards per carry, and under in terms of the touchdowns. Barry ended up with 37 and around that mark. So Jeanty is literally staying on pace, and that's really insane to say when I'm going to read this here because this is directly from one of our articles. The current Heisman winner leads the nation at 206.2 rushing yards, but you factor in the fact that he sat out the second half in 2 of his team's 5 games. So where he could be and where he is are a little bit different. The one thing I also kind of like Jeanty for, there's supposed to be like 15 to 20 mile an hour winds in this one. So if you think they're not going to run the ball, you're probably crazy. You look at some of those numbers. Anytime touchdown, minus 1,300. 2 touchdown, minus 280. Again, like we talked about last week, 3 touchdowns is your mark at plus 100. He is minus 120 to score in the first quarter. His rushing total, 183. If you just look at Maddox Madsen, the quarterback, his passing total is 210. So not too far off there. And here are the fun ones. So they've actually added a few markets in. He's 8-1 not to score. They actually have markets for 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, and 6 touchdowns, as well as 300, 350, and 400 rushing yards. So everything is up all over. He is the favorite for a reason, and I just don't see a reason why all these numbers won't hit against the Hawaii defense that decently porous, and especially with the win situation, guy's going to get a ton of carries. I just hope they kind of keep him in the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last week he got to 3 and then they took him out. So
correct.
Yeah. So people made even money on 3 and then then he got some Gatorade and a massage. So good for him. He's unbelievable. And finally, last thing, does Bama bounce back this week after being the center of that chaos? And Tennessee was part of the chaos, but because Vandy beat Bama, they get to kind of hide a little bit.
Everyone hid last week. I mean, if you lost and you were in Alabama, you weren't really talked about. But let's just talk, Alabama isn't coming off a loss, especially like that, very often. Since 2017, they are 7-0 straight up, 5-2 against the number after a straight up loss, all 7 games going under the total. But obviously, different scenario. Saban, DeBoer. Interesting that DeBoer is actually just 1-3 against the number 4 games after a straight up loss and losing as a favorite in 2 of those games. Not fantastic. The one thing I thought was kind of interesting, South Carolina has actually covered 3 games in a row versus Bama dating back to 2001. It's actually just 3-3 straight up versus Alabama. They are just one of 2 schools, 500 straight up or better versus the Tide since that year with a minimum of 3 meetings with Oklahoma. So obviously, history is history. Doesn't mean anything for this specific matchup, but kind of interesting the Gamecocks have kept it close. And one more I'll give you. Alabama's lost 2 straight at home at Bryant-Denny ATS. Hasn't lost 3 straight since 2017, losing 4 in a row that year. So this would be a bit unprecedented for them not to even cover the number. So an interesting one all around. I don't necessarily really want to get involved, but it might be something I'd look at live because I kind of want to see a drive or 2 from the Tide to see how they're reacting, because you would assume it's going to be touchdown, and they're going to be back in rhythm, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so where can they find you? Why don't I blank out? Middle age sucks, man. It sucks. Like you get to, this is your little like trailer for old age. But where can they find you on Action Network HQ?
Sure. So on Twitter, Evan H. Abrams, you can find me, tweet out all sorts of nuggets and information. I write 2 articles a week on Action Network, 1 NFL, 1 college, usually out early week, and I'm on tons of podcasts. Check out the Action Network podcast wherever you find pods, and I'll see you out there.
All right, Evan Abrams, Action Network HQ, with us pretty much every week, talking Vegas, numbers, gambling, sports gambling, all that stuff. So look him up, find him. Great numbers every single week. Evan, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon,
Appreciate
buddy.
it. Have a good one.
All right, Evan Abrams. We're back right after this. This is 365 Sports.
The Baylor Club. Memberships available at the Baylor Club with exclusive perks available also as a member. special events to premium dining. Don't miss out. Sign up today. You can call Skylar at 254-710-8073 to join now. Private events, we host our annual Academic All-Stars team honoring great student athletes in Central Texas at the Baylor Club. They have you covered with luxurious spaces, customized catering. Book your next big day at the Baylor Club. Reach out to Taylor or Sarah at the Baylor Club. Also dining, craving a dining experience that's a cut above? The Baylor Club serves up gourmet meals with a view of McLean Stadium. Reserve your table now by contacting the Baylor Club. They have absolutely phenomenal chefs for you to create the perfect cuisine. Game day celebrations, tailgating at the HEB tailgate, game days and game night like tomorrow night against Air Force, McLean Stadium, alumni gatherings to game day festivities. The Baylor Club is your home for everything green and gold. Sick 'em Bears. For more information, visit BaylorClub.com. The Baylor Club inside McLean Stadium in Waco.
Announcing Genco's Car Hugger Special. Right now, refinance your auto loan at Genco and get 3 months of no car payments. Plus, your loan will be automatically entered for a chance to win your next 3 car payments on us. Enjoy 5.19% for 48 months and then skip your payments until 2025. Subject to credit approval and membership eligibility. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
And I leave those in so I can constantly make a joke on Smokeless Fridays. Brought to you by Beech Nut Tobacco. Beech Nut. It was in the Sandlot.
Was it?
It was. That was the one. That was the one. I think that
that was Big Chief.
It was Big Chief that got everyone sick, right? Yeah.
Big Chief. Yeah. Okay. Big Chief and Mets fan Peyton Sawyer joins us now. Peyton, congratulations on the ALCS.
Oh, I thank you so much. It's kind of inherited the Mets. Never really spent more than 5 minutes in Queens, but that was fun to watch nonetheless.
Have you been to Citi Field?
I haven't been to the new Citi Field, no.
Oh.
Or the new Met Stadium, no. We went to the new Yankee Stadium a couple times, but not the new one. But I've heard nothing but good things.
You got to get there. It's one of my favorite. Like comparing it to Yankee Stadium, which I went to Citi Field on Thursday and Yankee Stadium on Saturday or Friday. Maybe it was Wednesday, but like it was so back-to-back days. And the new Yankee Stadium, the Yankee Stadium's awesome, monuments, all that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I'm a Red Sox fan, so it's like, but there's several of these guys with these monuments you stole from us.
Sure,
but,
just being polite, yeah.
Yeah. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But Citi Field is a very modernish ballpark, and it's very cool. And like we had seats in a level where there was like a bar and a concession, like a higher end concession, like fancier one right behind us.
Gotcha.
So, and we were kind of behind home plate. So it was really cool seats. And, it was great. So I had a blast at Citi Field.
I would love to. Yeah, I got to go.
Other than the subway was not as fun.
That's part of the experience, man.
Yeah.
No. You don't get part of it. You get the whole thing.
Yeah. When you take your, at the time, 68-year-old mother to
better.
Queens, she got a little nervous, and she's a well-worn traveler. But she was like, "Where do we go?" I'm like, "Mom, follow the arrows. Like we got to get from the 7 to the 9. Like we're gonna go to the 7, we're gonna get off, and we're gonna get on the 9. It's fine. We're good.
Yeah.
We're just,
you don't just get to take an Uber up. No. You got to do it the right way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't even want to try to do that after a Mets game. And it was they were terrible. It was Mets and Pirates. It was an awful game. Nobody was there. But even still, it's crowded.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ton of people.
Yeah. Ton of people. So Peyton, last week, total chaos.
Oh my gosh.
Total chaos. And it's changed so many things. And so this obviously not anticipated. So this is not a week where you can say hey, we crushed it, because nobody would have in these circumstances. But the Vandy game, Tennessee loses. There's so much that happens. So do you watch these things kind of happen and react to them in real time?
Oh my gosh. You should have seen my face at 1 a.m. watching Miami come back. I had done a video for our newsletter. I was going to post it, and I was like, okay, cool. That was just when the fourth quarter starting, and I'm like, okay, I'll go with this assumption that Miami just doesn't look like they have it, and just the color coming out of my face watching, knowing it's so late, I want to go to sleep, and I'm going to have to redo this entire video because of where Miami was going to drop in this whole scenario. And does Berkeley make it in now? And, it just ruined everything. So yes, having pizza with the wife and kids and watching Vandy, really pull it off. And you're just it's so much fun to watch it in real time and see, okay, this is really what's going to be happening with these rankings. And as you mentioned, I was nervous, and most weekends I overanalyze it a little bit by the end of the day, and I just think, I don't think this algorithm got anything right. There's just no way. And it comes out every weekend, and I'm like, that was great. And so last weekend was the first weekend I'm like, I have no idea what to expect here. And there's so much madness, and the algorithm did pretty amazing. I mean, it got Texas and Ohio State right, which I think everyone could have figured. But Miami, Alabama, and Tennessee, 6, 7, 8, the algorithm was predicting in real time that's where they were going to be landing. We were one off on Mizzou. They landed at 21. The algorithm had them at 20. I was pretty happy with what was going on. The biggest miss that they kind of had was it had just Texas A&M, I think, just way too high. They had the algorithm had Texas A&M at 9. Now, one of the interesting things about that, and I was tweeting and posting in real time, that's way too high. Do not look at a 25-9 movement. But the way that Tennessee or Texas A&M moved up to 15 and Mizzou dropped really low, I don't think anyone was really taking Mizzou as a serious top 10 contender, even the AP poll. So why are you putting them there in the first place? So that was kind of the that was the initial reaction. But overall, I was quite impressed with what it was able to accomplish.
Yeah. This week coming up, and it's weird because this is the week you would expect to be some shakeups because of some of the big matchups. Particularly if Penn State, who's number 4 right now, loses to USC, and I should have texted you this, but if Penn State loses to USC, that's probably the biggest top 5 shakeup that could happen, right?
Well, it's a top 5 shakeup that could potentially happen. I mean, do not ever underestimate the Red River rivalry. I mean, those games get wacky fast. So I hesitate to just say, yeah, Texas is going to hold on to that 1 seed. But even our algorithm, which we can dive in a little bit more here in a second, Oregon and Ohio State, the winner of that game is most likely going to take number 1, unless it's Oregon. Oregon with a win only moves up to number 2 in our algorithm. Texas holds on to that number 1 spot. So there is a good shakeup within that top 5. But I mean, something that I find a little bit more interesting with that Penn State USC matchup, just because I'm a total nerd, have we ever had a situation where a team has gone 11 unranked and then potential top 12, top 15 in a matter of 3 weeks? Like, if they don't have that loss to Wisconsin, USC is probably a top 10 team. And if they beat, if they go ahead and beat Penn State, they would probably be in the top 7, top 6, maybe. We can do a what if analysis on that if we're actually interested in it. But, that's the interesting thing to me, is where does USC line up in all of this if they can pull off that upset?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about USC and Penn State right now. You have it 27-23, right, on the site. So let's just flip that. Let's flip that and see what happens. I mean, it probably doesn't matter what the score is if USC wins the game. It's going to affect it. But just for the purposes of us getting an answer, just flip the score.
You want me to share my screen, or you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Great. Let's go ahead and share. Here we go. Okay, can you guys see it?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so we're going to go to rankings right now. We're going to go to the what if simulation, www.rankingsrightnow.com. And as Paul mentioned, we are going to flip the score of this. We're going to make this 23. Was it 27? Was that right?
Yeah.
Looked at way too many numbers today. Okay, great. 27-23. Right here, it has a reminder of what the change is about to happen. We're interested in the AP top 25, so we're going to go ahead and run the simulation here. And when we do that, whoa. Okay, here we are. Now, let's see if we can find both. So, Penn State drops to 9. Does USC make it in? I don't believe right here, 11. See, this is what I'm talking about. That would be nuts to me if they just went right back to where they were after that catastrophic game against Wisconsin. That's a big flip-flop out of nowhere. So, I really don't know if even the AP poll really knows where to handle USC in this situation, right? If USC wins this game, you got to put them back in. You can't just leave them out and just say, well, they'll get some votes. No, I think Penn State drops a little bit. USC has the resume of a tough competition this year. They got to go back to that top 12.
Wow. I mean, with 2 losses, which would be over, let's see, 2 undefeated teams in BYU and Iowa State. At least 2. Hold on. Is there any of the other one? Army is also undefeated, so that would hurt. It hurts their chances.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's
right. This is the one that, and I wrote this in our newsletter. This is the one that fascinates me the most. That USC, what are you going to do with them at the end of the day? The algorithm has them. You're beating the number 4 team in the country. You got to be taken seriously as a top contender. And there's no reason to think why they shouldn't. So I don't know with that one. That's a strange scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's talk about Red River, since listen, it's 90 miles away from here. Red River is a game that's always weird. It's a 14.5-point spread, which I get it. I've had multiple people explain to me why. I just have watched this game enough to know that I don't believe that.
No, you can't.
Look, I'm a Red Sox fan, so I believe in curses. I believe in I believe in sports voodoo and things. And there's certain things that I know. Like I know that one of the reasons that, and the Kansas State people got a list that Texas ran away from the Big 12 was Kansas State was befuddling them. They could never go on any, they beat them once and then Kansas State would beat them 3 times.
Right.
Like when they played Kansas State, it got weird. And then I know, back in the day, Nebraska, when they would play Missouri, it would get weird. They won that one game. If you remember, Davison, the ball bounced off his foot.
Right. That's right.
All that, it gets weird. Florida State and Georgia Tech is always weird.
Yeah.
It's always weird. This one is the king of that.
Yes,
the
you were
king
correct.
of it, where you could have one team just completely, Charlie Strong had a team that was essentially flat on their face, and he won the game. And we
had the Caleb Williams scenario a couple years ago. I love college football. I didn't know who this guy was.
Yeah.
I didn't know what he was capable of. Same thing with Tua a couple of years ago when he just came off the bench at halftime in the national championship game. You're like, what are they doing? And then 3 throws in, you're like, who is this guy? And why was he on the bench? Spencer Rattler was the quarterback before Caleb Wright came in for that game. Just weird momentum shifts happen in this scenario. You can't just look away for 5 seconds.
Yeah. Absolutely not. So let's run the scenario that Oklahoma wins the game. And if they do that, it would probably mean to me that this is in the,
I think it would be close. I think it would be 48, 45, something like that.
Let's just say it gets in a shootout, 48,
right.
45.
I mean, who wouldn't want that game? That game would be amazing. Okay, so these guys would have 45. They would have 48. Let's confirm it. Run the simulation. So just to double check that we're only looking at this change in the game. Okay, cool. So in this scenario, Oklahoma up to 7, Texas down to 4. Now, one of the other interesting things that I've seen from our simulations, if we go ahead and look at Texas, for example, so we run 10,000 simulations for each week, and we look at the results of what would happen in these different types of scenarios. We look at historical college football scores. We assign them randomly, all these different types of things. So ESPN FBI is giving Texas an 85% chance. Once again, got to look at that with a grain of salt and kind of breathe for a second. But this is the only time I've ever seen this situation. There is a situation where it's rare. It's only 2% of the time if you add the numbers together. But if Texas loses, there is a 15% chance that they only drop to 2. So that is a very bizarre scenario, right? There's also a scenario where if they win, they stay at 2. They are 1 right now. So there's a situation where if they win, they can move to 2, and if they lose, they can move to 2. I've never seen this one before. So I found that very interesting. This game is just, once again, it brings out the weirdness out of things. But I think right in that scenario, you lose. If it's a good loss, if it's a crazy shootout, people might be just saying that's Red River. That what are you going to do? Hey, we don't actually discount Texas being a good team. We think that they're still an elite team. They might have lost. We're only going to punish them a little bit because that's just what that weekend brings.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, you have Oklahoma State falling all the way out of the rank. Oklahoma State's not ranked. They're not even close anymore. Oklahoma falling all the way out of the rankings because that would be their second loss. Which is even still kind of big to me, considering they would lose to the number 1 team in the country.
Exactly.
The game they were expected to lose. Yeah.
So one of the crazy things that I've seen throughout this year is the algorithm has a tough time with those 14 to 17 ranked teams. In that pocket, for whatever reason, if you lose, you are gone. Now, that is something for me to really address at the end of this year when we're tweaking the algorithms and trying to learn from this whole year, which has been fantastic and gotten really great feedback of what actually matters to people. A lot of people have brought up, hey, this algorithm in that middle group, if you lose, you shouldn't be kicked out immediately, right? So like if OU loses, the algorithm has a simulation of only less than 1% of staying in the top 25. That seems a little aggressive to me. I would expect them maybe to be in that 20 to 25 range. But as you mentioned, you have a couple teams, Army, Navy, that don't have any losses. And they're kind of sitting there waiting to knock on the door, get into that top 25. Do you keep a 2-loss Oklahoma team in over a unbeaten Army team, an unbeaten Navy team? I'm not sure. So our algorithm doesn't believe they would be kept in, but we'll have to see where things lie.
Yeah. All right. Last thing before we let you go. LSU and Ole Miss is very interesting in that's another titan of a game. It doesn't appear that like Kansas State and Colorado Kansas. We'll ask about that one. 2 more. LSU and Ole Miss. You have LSU dropping all the way out if they lose.
Same type of scenario.
Same type of scenario. Should they win, what happens?
Great. Let's go ahead.
And that would be another 48-45 if that
sure. I love
happens.
that. Perfect. Let's do it. So let's go ahead and look for that LSU game right here. Let's do Death Valley at night. I don't that's not going to be a straightforward game by any means. Okay. LSU into the top 10, Ole Miss out. Once again, that area right in there, it punishes teams a lot. Now, Ole Miss now with 2 losses, same exact scenario, right? They were ranked so high that I think it's a little bit surprising to people to see them drop that far. Alabama's in a pretty similar situation there. Alabama, if you throw 2 losses in there. Tennessee, if you throw 2 losses in there. It's tough to really make that argument to some of these 1-loss programs. Hey, these teams are really above you. Now, we can all use our eyeballs. That's what they're used. That's why we have them. And we can kind of say, I really don't think a 2-loss Alabama team is worse than SMU. It's tough to make that argument. But the way that the AP poll works and how our algorithms are trained on this AP poll, that is the way that it is. It's looking like right now is Ole Miss would drop out. LSU becomes a top 10 team.
All right. We got another quote. We have 2 more to do.
Let's do it.
Let's do Kansas State. Let's flip the Kansas State and Colorado score.
Okay. So I heard you on your last segment.
Yeah.
You sounded a little too confident for me. So just to recap for everybody, as of right now, Kansas State is projected to win 30-26. You said, and I quote, if Colorado wins, they're for sure ranked. Well, sir, I've already run this game. This algorithm is not that convinced that as you are. So let's go ahead and change that. Let's just flip the score 26-30. Run the simulation. And if we look in here now, you have Kansas State dropping out of the top 25. I don't think anyone argues with that. You don't see CU in here. They're still not ranked. You have Nebraska at 25. And if you want to get into the super duper logical scenario of, well, Nebraska beat CU, and so they're better than them, and they're better than them, and they're better than them. But whatever, they're not in. However, I found that to be a little bit surprising. So we have the College Football Selection Committee coming up here in week 10 that they're going to release their rankings. And I was curious, well, what do they think is actually going to be the case here? So here's the current playoff committee's rankings based off of this weekend, right? And it's not nearly as dramatic as we've seen on the AP poll. Look, LSU with a loss only drops to 22, right? Texas A&M staying there. Oklahoma still in the top 25. There's definitely not as big of swings when it comes to this playoff committee, which makes a little bit more sense. So if we go ahead and change that game back and we make this 26-30, confirm it. Let's run it for the College Football Selection Committee. And there's CU's still not in there, but if we go ahead and look at all teams, CU is right here at 29. So right on that edge. And if we also looked at, see, you can't say these things in front of me, especially a math nerd. I'll go all in on you, right?
Yeah.
CU only got 3 AP votes last week, right?
Yeah.
There's all these teams that are favored above them. Now, this is once again assuming that all of nature goes completely smooth. There's just a slight breeze in the air. There's no major upsets. That never happens. So we will see if that actually is the case. But if you just change that one outcome, CU still is not making that top 25 yet.
Okay. All right. We've got a little longer than I had planned, but it's fine. We can run over on the show today a little bit. Okay. Iowa State and West Virginia. What happens if West Virginia beats Iowa State?
Great. So we're back on the AP poll rankings. So we had a fun little tangent there for a second. So Iowa State, let's find them. You want to just flip the score, make it easy?
Yeah.
How many losses does West Virginia have now?
2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, here you go. Iowa State dropping out, right? They're lurking, right? That 33, I don't take as a hard 33. I view that as like, hey, somewhere in the 25 to 40 range, somewhere that they're still getting some AP votes, but not a lot. And if we just look at all of the teams instead of the top 25 and we look for West Virginia only moves up to number 82. They like the algorithm likes a lot of other teams ahead of West Virginia. So West Virginia's in no man's land. So, Iowa State's really getting the punishment out of all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the perception, obviously, of the Big 12, too, I'm sure, playing into that with the voters. One more. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt this week. Bracket Cat asked for this.
Okay, great. Sorry.
If they lose to South Carolina, do they suffer the same fate as other teams not named Alabama?
Okay, let's go ahead.
Because they have that win over Georgia.
Okay.
So.
Here we go. All right, we're going to reset all the scores. So we talked about in the newsletter that we ran this morning, we did talk about this scenario, and I want to get out of all the teams, only the top 25. Let's go ahead. We also did it with Tennessee. Tennessee losing another one, really bad. Alabama losing, I would think that one would I would say that would be kind of low scoring. Again, maybe something like 27-21. I don't think that's going to become a shootout. No. But pick your own. Go to the website, have fun, play around with it a little bit. If Alabama loses that game, they're 22.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's as close as...
South Carolina has it in them, too, by the way. They did not look good last week against Ole Miss, but they have it in them. They had a really great season up until that last game. It's not unreasonable to think. Okay.
All right. Well, go to the website, rankingsrightnow.com, create your account, play around, fall into a rankings hole. Peyton Sawyer, I mean, I'll just say for your benefit, let's go Mets. I have no dog in this hunt right now. I like
good ball, man. I just want good ball.
You and I share one thing. We do not want the Yankees to win.
No, not right now. No.
Like, that's what we can definitely agree on. Good baseball. Yankees winning is bad for society.
Yeah, good ball. Let it go 7 games. I just want good ball, man.
Exactly. All right. Peyton Sawyer, rankingsrightnow.com. When we come back, Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country, then Josh Neighbors joins us. This is 365 Sports.
Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, going on right now in the month of October. Each Wrangler has a trail-rated badge, which indicates that the vehicle has passed a series of off-road tests and is capable of handling tough terrain. These tests include off-road traction, maneuverability, articulation, ground clearance, and water fording. All at Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Also, Ram Power Days heating up at Alan Samuels in Waco. Scary good deals on over 300 new cars, trucks, and SUVs. Get a demo 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab 4x4 for $16,000 off MSRP. You could also get 0.9% financing for 72 months on an in-stock 2024 Ram 1500 Crew or Quad Cab. Buy any new Jeep and get the Jeep Wave program, which includes 2 oil changes and 2 tire rotations, good for 2 years from date of purchase. Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit Marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Alan Samuels Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country with us. We missed him last week, and it was terrible. I was sad. It spilled over into our users, and then something happened that didn't happen in the Big Ten. But Kenneth is a big Alabama fan, and I told him that we would leave the first part of this segment open for him to have a therapy session. 1984 was the last time this happened, where Vanderbilt beat Alabama, and there was a lot of things that went on in 1984 that wouldn't happen today. Like it just, it's a long time ago, 40 years. So, Kenneth, how are your emotions almost a week later? How are we doing? Alabama taking a loss is nothing new, but losing to Vanderbilt is a special kind of bee sting.
Yeah, and by no means am I taking shots at these schools, but you're talking about Vandy lost this season to Alcorn, and always RIP to Steve McNair, Air McNair, and Georgia State. A close game to Missouri. So it's one of those things where you could see that Vandy may have been kind of, I hate to say this, building up to this. I really look at Alabama's defense. No turnovers, no sacks. I think when we're talking about Kalen DeBoer, that this is kind of one of those things we have to see how Alabama goes. I think offensively, particularly a lot of people, I think, thought that that doesn't know that what he can do with a mobile quarterback, because they looked at the fact of how Michael Penix Jr. hadn't been as mobile as he was while he was in the Big Ten in Indiana due to injuries. Thought perhaps with Jalen Miro that he wouldn't be able to get a lot out of Jalen Miro. But it hasn't really even been a problem. Jalen didn't have a turnover. Well, he had a pick, but it was a batted pick. So if you didn't watch the game, it looks like he threw a pick. It was a batted ball. The DB got it and took it to the house. Watching that game, I was sitting there with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Paul. And I'm like, at this point, Alabama's down to score. I'm like, cool, we can score. We could definitely get another score and a field goal if necessary or whatever. It took at least 6 minutes before Alabama got the ball back. At that point, Paul, I said, this game is over. Listen, Diego did his thing, the quarterback for Vandy. It's one of those reasons, and I wasn't here last week, so I won't even say I would have gloated over the Georgia victory, because if you watch that Georgia game, the first half, I'm sure there's a lot of Alabama fans with their chest out And then the second half, we saw towards the end of the game was a lot of Georgia fans with the test out. It was funny texting my friends. I was like, I was actually out, and I said I was going back home. I said it will be nothing for Georgia to come back in this game. It's just if the first half it was like it's over, it'd be nothing. And the reason I'm bringing that victory up isn't to give props to Alabama. I want to point out the faults that Alabama's defense has been showing. And throughout the years, Nick Saban, we saw the adjustment made offensively when things kind of initially he didn't necessarily want to do that, but of course he went along with it. But we always used to get the parts where usually defensively, don't give him a couple weeks, but defensively he would be in the mad scientist he is, be able to pick it up.
So Kenneth, let's get into after the sorrow and the pain of Alabama, all of that. Now we can get into what what business is for you, which is the Big Ten. The biggest one so far in the season is Saturday. Ohio State, Oregon. This is the reward for realignment. This is what we get as fans after all the craziness that had nothing to do with us and nobody asked us about it in Autzen Stadium. But Ohio State is so deep. We just talked to Evan Abrams from Action Network, and he kind of likes Oregon in this when it comes to making a bet. I just think Ohio State's the deepest team in the country, and it's going to be hard for Oregon to keep pace for 4 quarters. But I do know that Dan Lanning will kitchen sink this game and make it as hard as he can for the Buckeyes.
He better throw everything in the kitchen sink. I have to just piggyback what you said. I think this game for 3 quarters, even let's just say if it's lopsided initially, I think by the time we get to the 3rd or 4th quarter, it's going to be tighter. But I think Ohio State's too deep. I think the addition of Chip Kelly and what he's doing with that running game fits with what they need to do to dominate, not just within the Big Ten, but in the playoffs. I think this is perhaps depending on what Georgia kind of maybe does later on this season. I think this is Ohio State's year. I think this is Ryan Day's year. And I think Dan Lanning is a great coach, but I still don't know if they can go up against a powerhouse, a traditional Big Ten powerhouse, because that's what you have now with Ohio State, with the power of the run game. And of course, their wide receiver, you got one of those schools that it's hard to take down. And I don't have Oregon beating Ohio State. And it's funny because earlier when we've had these segments, I know I've talked about a wait and see approach when it comes to Oregon, and we've seen that Oregon has rebounded and shown what we expected them to be as a national power, but I haven't seen enough to where I thought like, man, they could give Ohio State a run for their money. So yeah, I have to go with Ohio State right now. What's the line? What's the betting line on that?
Hold on, let me tell you. I had it up just like 2 seconds ago, and then of course I moved away from it when I was talking to you. It's close. I think it was the look ahead was like -1. Yeah. So it wasn't, I think it might be 3 right now.
Okay.
The
like that.
line is Ohio State in 3. Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine with me. I would probably take Ohio State in the 3. I wouldn't do it with my chest out, but I would probably take Ohio State and the 3, just at the 3. But Ohio State and the 3 is kind of how I would go. But it wouldn't surprise me if Ohio State wins by a touchdown or more. I don't expect a blowout, but it wouldn't surprise me if they win by a touchdown or more. I think there's still a couple of growing pains for Dan Lanning and Oregon entering the Big Ten. I don't mean like huge steps like we had to see with what SC is kind of going through, but I think there's still a little bit of growing with what goes down in the trenches when it comes to the Big Ten.
All right. Speaking of SC, let's get to them. They play Penn State. This is a game I think could get away from them if they are not maybe perfect, because Penn State, both these teams are improved from a year ago, but Penn State was a step ahead of them already. So I think that's where they live. You're the president of the Drew Aller fan club, and Andy Koldenicki has been a godsend for him. He doesn't make mistakes. They've unleashed his talents a lot more. And James Franklin, I think it'd be good for him to win a game over one of these jobs he's been constantly linked to since he got to Penn State. Like people, I don't understand why people think that somebody just wants to leave one of the places that they only care about college football and nothing else.
To your point, before we get into the game, I think because people didn't grow up with Joe Paterno and and you had so much bad at the end of towards the end of it that you forgot what he did there and why Penn State was Penn State. People that aren't our age don't remember them being independent like Notre Dame and all of the history with Penn State. To your point of why would you leave some place, as you pointed out, that is feverish about football to a place where at times, depending on if you're winning or losing, they can be fickle. And also, James Franklin's been in a spot where he hasn't beat Michigan and Ohio State, and they've still kept him there. Why would you now, when there's a playoffs, do something like that? So and you already see what the type of stuff, the heat that Lincoln Riley can get up and down. And even with them having a better year at SC this season, there's still people that question Lincoln Riley, and I'm not saying that it's rightfully so. Being the president of the Drew Aller fan club, you know what? I'll say this. I think this may be another one of those games where Drew Aller's a better player than he was last year, but you can even see his last weekend's game. They'll take what, and I mean Penn State's offense will take what you give them. They won't always feel like they have to put, foot to pedal, where we can win by double digits here, but we don't have to bludgeon you and try to create turnovers. So I could see this being a game where Penn State may win by a touchdown or more for me. Even though I think I looked at it earlier and it may have just been like 3.5. I can't remember, which to me was like, whoa, I definitely have Penn State winning by more than that. I think their defensive backfield is going to be pretty stout. I still some questions with Tom Allen and that defense coming over from Indiana and Manny Diaz going over to Duke. That defense doesn't look the same, but I can't hate on it because you look at the fact that they lost Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac on the front, and even though Abdul Carter's down there, it's still not the same heat that you had with him being a linebacker, and you had those two guys on the edge rush. So I definitely have Penn State winning. I still go to when we've seen that when you're going up against these fundamentally sound Big Ten schools like Penn State, it's going to be hard down low. That offense, I got to see the type of pressure, even though I just dissed Penn State's defensive line. I got to see the type of pressure that they're able to generate against that offensive line against SC, and if they have Miller Moss running around like we've seen them against Michigan. So I got Penn State. I don't think it'll be. I think I got Penn State by a touchdown. Let me put mine on there. Boom. I got Penn State by a touchdown. I like what's going on at SC, but I think SC is a little above where we thought. I think they're definitely above where we thought they were at the beginning of the year. I don't think any of us thought they would have threats to be in every game to a degree. That offensively, and then defensively, and we've seen there have been some problems, but you still know coming over from UCLA, D'Anton Lynn has done a really good job with the pieces that they have over there. But I think it's going to just take a little bit longer to see what happens with SC. So I definitely have Penn State going out there and winning.
All right, let me ask you this. They're rolling along. Kurt Signetti's done a fantastic job. Is Indiana for real?
Definition of for real, because
can they be 9-3?
Okay, you're talking about right now, and they got what 6 victories of, they got 6 wins. Man, that's a lot. Nebraska, I don't know if they can beat Nebraska, but I think there's a chance. Let me say that I think there's a chance they can beat Nebraska. I don't know if they can beat Washington. They'll beat Michigan State. I don't know if they'll beat Michigan. They're definitely not beating Ohio State, and they'll beat Purdue. So yeah, there's a chance they can get to, they can get to 9-3. Look, if they beat the teams that they're expected to beat, because there are some people that may take them over Nebraska, right? And there are some people, rightfully so, may take them over Washington. I think Washington is one of those programs that, regardless who the head coach is, there's a high floor with Washington. So, like, a lot of people just expect them to fall. Washington has done this before. So even with Kellen DeBoer leaving, and they still have some of the remnants of that. Nebraska, I like what's going on with Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola up there. So I think my bias, I would lean towards Nebraska, but also with my bias, I haven't seen Indiana do anything like that. I was just talking about Tom Allen a minute ago, the defensive coordinator for Penn State, the former head coach of Indiana. You just haven't seen Indiana be able to pull this off in football, well, even in basketball really recently, outside of the women's basketball team last year. But I definitely have them losing to Ohio State, and I think, and I have them losing to Michigan, but that could be a game that perhaps they can win. But I have them losing to Michigan. These are winnable games against Nebraska and Washington, even though I would say that I think they would have 8 wins is probably what I would say, but I'm biased because my natural belief isn't to believe in Indiana, and that's not fair. I'm not being fair to what that program is doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this is a fantastic week for college football nationally, and wanted to leave some time so we could talk about it. Kansas State and Colorado. I'm going to rapid fire these right at you. Kansas State and Colorado. Does Colorado beat a very well-coached Kansas State team who had a weird game a couple weeks ago, but can they contain the running game like they did against UCF?
I don't know if they can contain the running game. I'll say that, but I do think they may be able to score enough to perhaps beat Kansas. That Colorado team is hard to judge. And from just me coming on here, how big I am. We're talking about the trenches. And to me, that's one of the biggest issues on both sides of the ball. You just mentioned containing the run game. I'll take Colorado because I think Shedeur is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and Travis Hunter is probably easily the best player in the country. Offensively, I would like for them to do a lot more motion offensively, but still they can get it done. So I'll go with Colorado begrudgingly with that one.
Okay. Ole Miss, LSU.
Oh man, that's a good one right there. You know what? This is a hard one for me to pick right here. I'll take Ole Miss, and I know that Ole Miss, we expected more out of Ole Miss this year, and they've had a loss that was kind of like a head scratcher. It's hard for me to trust LSU at times. I know that recruiting wise, it's an excellent program, but it's really maybe every 8 years to a decade to where they kind of go on one of those runs, and I don't think they're in one of those runs right now. Coaching, I'm gonna go with Ole Miss, so I'm gonna take Ole Miss over LSU.
All right. Well, Garrett's an LSU fan. I can't wait till LSU and Bama play. We're gonna put you guys on.
Sorry,
it's on.
Sorry, Garrett.
All right, and finally, Red River, Texas OU. Texas getting 14.5 points in this game, this game always gets weird. I think Texas is going to win, but I have a hard time as someone who's, not personally either way, but as a person who lives in Texas, deeply invested in watching this game every single year. I've been to it a few times. It's such a cool place, but other than the stadium's a dump, but it's such a cool scene. The Cotton Bowl's a dump. It's a dump. If you go through there and you don't smell mold, you're in a really lucky spot. It's just so old. It's so old. Yeah. Dave,
with all that money.
Here's the thing.
It's
the city of Dallas, so it's all the city. They've improved it, sure.
Okay.
It's improved, but man, it's just the fair is
too much
awesome.
money in Dallas for that, Paul.
Yeah,
it's too much money in
Dallas. The fair is awesome.
Paul.
The fair is awesome. They spend all the money on corn dogs and deep fried Snickers. That's my thought. Yeah, Dallas is too much fun. The Cowboy Stadium, Jerry wanted it there at the Cotton Bowl site, and then the city probably did the right thing and said, we're not going to give you any money. And the city of Arlington is like, who wants money? You want money? We'll give you money. Come over here.
Right.
Build right next to the Rangers, And then the Rangers didn't need a new stadium. Yep. They're like, we'll give you more money anyway. Build another one. We don't care. Come on. Money. Here. Don't leave. So but how do you see this one going? Texas and Ohio State, to me, have looked the best of any two teams that have played, although neither of them have been truly tested just yet.
That part. You know what? When you say that last part with testing, I really want to see Arch Manning go up against a vaunted defense to really know.
Well, it's going to be Quinn Ewers this week. So Quinn Ewers is back.
Oh, it is? Oh,
yeah, Quinn Ewers is back.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, sir? Oh, yeah. Oh. So listen, I'm definitely. I would take Texas either way. Let me say this, and this is my thing when it comes to Arch. Some of the hype can just be a tad bit overwhelming. And I think he's going to be a good quarterback, but some of the descriptions as far as the arm talent is kind of slow your roll there. Quinn Ewers on the flip side to me is like a Maserati. And I know this is going to probably piss some people off. Like a Maserati is like a really nice car, but when you take it off the lot, it has one of the worst depreciation rates of any expensive car that you get your hands on. And that's the only problem really with it. And I think Quinn Ewers has the arm talent. I think he has everything, but sometimes it's like, and I don't want to say he doesn't have it, but it's like brain glitches where I think he'll be one of those guys when he gets into the pros that will be a nice B tier quarterback at the top of the B tier at times. But I don't know if he could be a guy that can maintain A. And saying all of that, I think Texas is going to win by 14 in a rivalry game. I think that will be difficult, but I'll tell you this, you're closer than this than I am. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you, because and it's funny, like last year, Georgia was this team where, and I know why, because I'm an Alabama fan, where when we're talking about the best teams, I would like block out Georgia, and James will have to be like, and Georgia, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I forgot, I don't know what. I do that with Texas this year, and it has nothing to do with disliking them. It has to do with Texas being one of those schools where, and I think they are back, but it's like, can they do it? And I'm with you. I think the only team outside, and I mentioned again, would be Georgia, but Texas could be that team that can rival Ohio State. I don't think Oklahoma has anything for them. I don't think it'd be 14, but I think it'd be double digits, to be honest with you, or at least close to 10-point victory by Texas. I think just Texas kind of has their stuff together this season.
Absolutely. All right, Kenneth. The Bears, that offensive line starting to play a little better.
Dude, let me tell you, this is the thing, and I think anybody watching this show will know this. You don't have to watch Bears football. I'm one of the coaches that I like a lot in the pros. He hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. I like Kyle Shanahan, right? And I like Kyle Shanahan because he makes running the football sexy. A lot of offensive-minded coaches believe they have to prove their brilliance through the air. The Bears, with their new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron, who came over from the Seattle Seahawks, I get that he was installing his system and he was running a lot of 11 with 3 wide receivers. But in doing that, the Bears, who brought over Keenan Allen this year in a trade, Keenan Allen was out. You had a small wide receiver in a scheme where sometimes these guys have to block it, and DeAndre Carter out there, where get your ass in 12 or 13, put 2 tight ends out there and run the rock. And saying that, one thing that the Bears, even when they had issues with their former offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, was with Justin Fields and them connecting and it translating on the field, they were one of the best running teams in the NFL the last 2 seasons. I understand you don't know this team, but one thing that offensive line could always do is run block. They brought in Shelton. Shelton is a smaller guy who can move out and get to the second level. I've been screaming for 4 weeks, simplify the game. Why are you trying to put too much on Caleb? Caleb is supposed to grow into this. You don't have to. You didn't bring all this talent in here to force him to do things that he doesn't have to unless you're in that situation. I went to the game last week, and it was a well called game. But there were still times where it was like, stop being cute and run the rock. And people here were hard on DeAndre Swift and was calling that a failed contract. I wanted the Bears to bring him in. I knew they weren't going to bring in Saquon Barkley because of the amount of money. But yeah, the Bears are looking better because they're running the football. In football, it's simple. It's really simple. I'm not saying that sometimes it can't get more complex or it doesn't need complexity, but if you consistently and physically run the football and you control the game clock, you're going to end up with W's more than L's.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Kenneth Davis, you can find him, Big Ten Country. What's the name of the Bears podcast again? Under Center. So he's great. We love him. He's my new podcast best friend. Well, look, I see it down the road. You and I are just going to do one together. Let's just start making plans right now. Let's get some sponsors and do this thing, man. This is too much fun. Garrett's shaking his head.
I'm all for this. Y'all's chemistry is ridiculous.
Just let me know. We can control the North and the South.
That's right.
Together. All right. We shall combine them.
I love it. Let's do it. Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country. Kenneth, we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Have a good one, guys.
All right. That's Kenneth Davis, Big Ten Country with us. Oh, Garrett, plans are in motion now.
Yes, sir.
That's it. Like, you can't. This is what it's like when they form the Avengers.
I can see that.
Honestly, like, this had to be what it's like when Iron Man and Captain America and the Hulk all got together. We're like, hey, this could be fun. I know in the movie there was a little bit of resistance, but that's just for dramatic effect. Yeah. I would think if you had a real life Avengers, like most of the time you're like, hey, do you want to work with Iron Man? I'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, who wouldn't?
Yeah, sure I do. That we have a Hulk? Great. Who else can we get? Is there a hot girl who can like kill people? Yeah, okay, go bring her in.
We'll find her.
How about an archer? Do you have a guy who can shoot really cool arrows? Done. Norse god? Done. A guy who can crawl up walls? No problem. We've got a couple of those, Oh, my God. Yeah. So, okay. When we come back, let's talk Big 12 with our buddy Josh Neighbors. This is 365 Sports.
I've had a lot of ailments. My goodness. Hey, this is David Smoke. I'm 65 years old, and I'm going to have some things break down. I work out still most every day. I can't run like I used to. My hip is bothering me, and I've had injections in my back. In fact, one back in April up in Dallas, and it worked, but it did not solve the problem. So I need to get another MRI of my lower back, my lower lumbar, and also at some point figure out, is that what is affecting me having this throbbing pain? And it's more often than I even admit in my right hip. Ideal MRI set me up with an MRI last week, thanks to my doctor calling them and saying, this is what we need from your state-of-the-art imaging machines. So, Ideal MRI, $497 or less every single time. Dr. Rob Maxey and his ownership and partnership, they have done a phenomenal job. This saves you money, a bunch of money. The average is $1,100, and you don't pay anything more and sometimes less with IdealMRI.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Midway Athletics and UBO Business Services are two names that exude winning. From Midway's top Central Texas Star test scores to college-like extracurricular facilities and UBO Business Services' industry-leading customer service scores, you can trust in these two winning programs. Best of luck to Coach Joe Gillespie and the Midway Panthers. And look at your sticker on your office equipment. If it does not say UBO, call Midway Class of 2020, Duff, Daxon, Dane, or Sean Hunt at 254-709-2101 or ubeo.com.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you to make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Neighbors, not in a bunker or anything. He's just at the radio station that he works at. Big 12 Watch with us. I was concerned when I saw you, blink 2 times if you need rescuing or something like that. Oh, you do? Oh. Yeah.
I do, actually. I do. I really do,
yeah. Josh, last week, college football was a crazy week. All around, upsets all around. But this one in the Big 12, we've got several bye weeks, which, allows us to focus. I do want to talk about one of those teams that's on bye because things have gone awry in Fort Worth. So let's start before we get into games with TCU and Baylor. And part of the thing I want to talk about is they're so similar. Like, the only thing that TCU has that's different than Baylor is their school is in a bigger city. Like, that's it. Otherwise, like, it's almost the same thing. Same size fan base, same kind of support for the program, same kind of fan support, like waning and going. Like, it's not Iowa State that just doesn't care. It's a party when there's a game of any kind. Like, they're very similar. And right now, surprisingly enough, they're in very similar situations where Baylor very much has a coach on the hot seat, and Sonny Dykes has entered that chat because the last 2 years have been abysmal after the national championship game. Let's start with TCU. How do you see this playing out if they don't get any better?
Yeah, it's difficult for TCU because I guess Baylor too. We know Baylor would probably have a little bit easier time getting out of we know they will, their contract, Dave Aranda. We don't know what the Sonny Dykes extension is, I don't think, because private school.
Yeah.
So, we saw, totally forgetting Baylor, Mac Rhodes, right, when he was out. And I think on y'all's show and other shows, he said, hey, look, we're going to give Dave one more season, and we're going to see what happens, in 24. Sonny Dykes made a national championship game, so we know he can do it. But there is a lightning in the bottle quality to that. And, they have not found that mixture of personnel, playmaking, their run game is just terrible. Like, they can't run the ball. And we've seen that, like, what a killer that is. I think the better teams, it's funny because we talked about this being a pass-happy league, but like the last few years, when you think about like what teams have won, well, a lot of football's like this, but like controlling the line of scrimmage really matters. Think about Pac-12 last year. Washington had a really good offensive line. They did, but it was the offensive line in tandem with the amount of quarterback play and playmaking and whatnot they had. But for the most part, if you're controlling the trenches in a lot of these leagues, that's where you're winning. Florida State did it last year in the ACC. In the Big 12 last year, we obviously saw it happen. Texas was an upfront hammer the entire year, and they were a hammer all the way through the championship game. SEC, that was more of an even trenches matchup, but I thought Alabama did a bit better job in the SEC title game. You kind of get the gist here. And TCU up front just has not been very good. I know with the offense they run, like, it's a little bit different with like what kind of offensive lineman you're looking for, with the Bryles type offenses. It's a little bit more athletic, but a run game is a huge part of that. And if you can't run the ball in that offense, you really are dead in the water, because that offense it's not necessarily designed to throw the ball. Like, they don't want to throw the ball 60 times a game. If you ever watched those, Paul, they know this very well at Baylor. Like, they want to run the ball. They want to be able to control the line of scrimmage. They want to do it at their pace. And TCU can't do that right now. And I think for me also, it was maybe not as big of a swing now as it felt at the time, but hiring Kendall Bryles, bringing in a Bryles to TCU, like, it's just not worked out that well either. Their defense has been bad too. So, we know where the Baylor situation's heading. I think we can all be pretty honest about that. TCU, I don't know where it's heading, because I think Sonny Dykes can win places, and I've seen him win places. So it's odd to see him consistently now struggle the last 2 years.
Okay, so Josh, this is a weird thing that's happening at Baylor where they are better than they were a year ago. But their problem is that they don't have dogs. Like, they don't have guys who just when you've got to get a first down, when you've got to score this touchdown, when you have to get an interception, when you have to get a sack, those moments just don't happen. I'm not saying the coaching staff has been perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it is way better than it was a year ago. But if they don't start winning, Dave Aranda's going to get let go, because there's no way they're going to be able to sell another year of Dave Aranda to the fans.
Well, you're selling the rebuild in the middle of a rebuild, right? Yeah. Like you took a step back and it's like, no, but we're building up, and it's a hard thing to do. Because, I think, and I always kind of think about Arkansas like this way, I think about how talented and good Taylon Green, the quarterback, looks. And I'm like, man, I just wish I could guarantee that he gets 2 years of Bobby Petrino. Mm-hmm. And like, it sounds great, but like, if you fire Sam Pittman, you're going to have to get rid of Petrino because who wants to inherit the most beloved coach in Arkansas history as a play caller, right? Like you want to kind of take your own things. And so that's the problem that Baylor's having is are you better? That's a question. And you said the answer is yes. And I believe the answer is yes. But then there's a second question. Okay, are you meaningfully better? Are you better in a way that makes fan interest increase? Are you better in a way that, I think West Virginia, a good example of this last year, a 9-win season for them was meaningfully better. The question they're going to have to be answering the rest of the year is like, what do we consider success or on par or what should look like at West Virginia? What's acceptable at West Virginia? Baylor's got to answer that question. And I think you mentioned it really well. Like these are schools that are smaller, that have a lot of money, that are in a good location. But these schools go through these, and once GP left, like this has kind of been the case. Like it's been very cyclical. Baylor for some outside reasons, but like it has been a roller coaster for both of these schools. And so that's kind of the weird thing is like, where do we settle into like we're K-State, we're winning 8 games every single year, and then we pop up for 10. It's like 12, 5, 3, 10. Like it's kind of how it feels right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, if you had to rank the hot seat meter in the Big 12, and I think there's legitimately only like 2 guys on it, would you put Dave Aranda at like a 7, 8, 9, and Sonny Dykes at like a 5?
Yeah. Are we sure Neil Brown's not still?
I'm not really like. Let's put him at like a 3. Like
this team is not better than they were last year, and I'm not even saying wins and losses. They just don't look like a better team. And like if Garrett Green doesn't pull their ass out of the fire against KU, I think it's a little bit different of a conversation.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have lost to Pitt, and they did. And they did not. I know the Penn State game was weird, but like they couldn't scheme their way to being close in that game. So this week's big. I don't think Iowa State's the 11th best team in the country, but big opportunity for them at home. So I would still put Neil Brown in there because I thought they needed to show something significant last year just to save his job. And I think his extension, which really wasn't an extension, it was kind of just a rearranging of money to get the assistants more, showed the fact that, hey, we're not just going to pay you because it's 9. We didn't have an identity before. So I would still say Neil's in there. And I think Satterfield might be fine now. So I would say Dave's like a 9 or 10.
Yeah. It's up there.
He's a 4 for me. I don't think that. I think when you go to a national championship game and you were able to find such good coordinators and you were able to, and like, wasn't like those guys were like these exceptions to the rule that TCU can have. Like TCU's always had good players. Yeah. Gary Patterson has put a bunch of guys in the NFL, and that's before TCU had as much cachet as they have now. And they were really athletic. So like, I think TCU still in a spot where they can find the athletes, still in a spot where they can get decent coaches. They can afford those coaches. They've got resources and whatnot. I just think the staff's in a weird spot with what they want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. All right, let's get into the week tonight. We've got Utah and Arizona State, and all signs point to Cam Rising playing, but I'll believe it when I see it. And I don't know how big of a deal this is, but if I'm a Utah fan, I'm emotionally exhausted of the Willie Woney. Just tell us, coach. Just tell us, is he going to play or not?
Yeah, didn't Kyle Whittingham mention a situation where they could shut him down for the year?
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? Well, and they've been doing this song and dance for a while now. They did. I mean, hell, the Florida game last year. It's like, he might. Here it comes. It's like, and then he doesn't play the entire season. Yeah, I mean, it's a different conversation when he plays. You know, they are a team that, you know, when you look at it on the field, like what they've got when Cam Rising's out there, experienced quarterback, well-run offense, ton of confidence, good defense, like they've got everything that you'd want. And we know their offense can take like a couple extra steps up. So then they got playmakers too. So, I mean, it's such a big and interesting question. And like, I I don't actually know how to like analyze Utah games. I don't know how to break them down anymore because it's like I don't know how to believe whether he's playing or whether he's not playing, and it is such a meaningful thing for them. It looks completely different when he's not playing.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I'm someone who really is starting to believe in Kenny Dillingham and Sam Levitt and Cam Scatterbo and what they've got going on there. But again, there's still a Utah defense that's really good. I don't think Cam Scatterbo is going to be able to maybe deliver some of the similar punishment that he does on other teams, but he's still a really good player. I think this one is totally up for grabs.
Yeah, well, Kenny Dillingham is, and I've said this like early in the season, I wanted to make this point when they were 3-0. Like, you talk about what progress looks like. It's just, it's such a good coaching job because it's so hard. It's so challenging to get a team like that to raise them up. And they get 4 touchdown passes from Levitt last week, and their offense was tremendous, and they're 4-1. And I know their schedule really is difficult the rest of the way. They're at Cincinnati, who's a lot better than we thought. At Oklahoma State, cratering now, so it's possible. You got UCF, who the hell knows, at K-State, BYU, and at Arizona. Like this could be a bowl team. I still don't think they're good enough to contend for a Big 12 championship, but I mean they're still 4-1, and they beat Utah tonight. Like we've got to start maybe talking about it a bit. Once again, they play a lot of really good teams, but we have to entertain it because they beat 2-1 with a tiebreak over the preseason favorite.
Yeah.
And whether it's rising or not, man, like you just got to beat the team in front of you. And if there's no rising and you get the win, it still counts all the same in the standings. So they're in the hunt. They don't look like it's like BYU. Like BYU ostensibly is in first place, but like it's not a first place team. They've got first place results, but they're not a first place team, in my opinion.
No, not right now. Not right now. All right, moving along. Cincinnati and UCF. UCF finds themselves in a must-win game against a very improved Cincinnati team that can score. I'm not totally sure about their defense, but I know Brendan Sorsby has been way better than I think everybody expected, getting the ball over the place. If any of their running backs are back and healthy, this is going to be a problem. UCF the last 2 weeks just has not looked like the team that beat TCU, and, of course, TCU doesn't look very good, as we talked about. This is the only way they stay in the race. If they lose this week, they are ostensibly out of it for the rest of the year, and we can kick dirt on them getting to Arlington when just a month ago I thought this is a team that could really be a player there. What do you think about Cincinnati and UCF?
UCF should be 2-3. I mean, they should be 0-3 in the league, or 0-2 in the league. Think about that TCU game. He needed a wild rally to get back into that game and to go and win it. So the Gus bust to me, not saying the wheels are totally falling off, but this is like a very, very Gus Malzahn team. They're super talented. They've got really good skill players, but man, they are effing around, Paul. They are messing around in some of these games. They looked, I mean, like at times a little bit out. Like I pushed around a little bit last week. So I mean, on a game-to-game basis, like who the heck knows? Like this is one of those games where you're talking about betting it. Definitely not. Yeah, kind of a loser leaves town match. Somebody stays alive, but then once again, you kind of realize both these teams from a program standpoint are still newer to the league. And so you're still kind of making that initial climb, which I think takes time. You know, I don't think coming from it's not like they're Utah coming from a Power 5. They're coming from a G5 still. And I know UCF looks a bit different, but it's going to take more time, I think, for their programs to get to this point. So loser leaves town match, but I think eventually they both leave town. One just sooner than the other.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think this is really interesting. Arizona lost to Tech last week. BYU, a juggernaut. Nobody can get them right now in Provo. It's a daytime game, so that's a little bit different, but it's still in Provo. Arizona seems very one-dimensional to me and not great on defense. Now, can this game be kind of a wild one? I think so, but BYU is just I don't know if it's this week where they get got. They're going to get got, but I don't think it's this week.
Yeah, it kind of tests your this is a great litmus test for them. And Fafita's not been as good as I thought he would be this year, but also I don't think they're weapons, but outside of they've got the weapon, Tetero and McMillan, but I don't think they've got the weapons around him. And I know he's been throwing more interceptions this year as well, but it's been inconsistent for them on the ground game. The opportunity though is going to be there for them, because if Arizona turns the ball over, like, you could get the snowball effect you got against K-State. I mean, what BYU did in that game was turn turnovers into points. It's very simple. That's how they won that football game. So it's not out of the realm of possibility they do that again against a turnover-prone team. So I think that's kind of the good thing for BYU is, like, they keep getting these favorable matchups. K-State, young quarterback, great. Turn them over, get it done. Younger quarterback here, but turnover-prone quarterback with Fafita, with the way he's played. All right, you can cover, or maybe even let McMillan go crazy. You know, I think in their case, McMillan could beat them because their offense isn't that good. So you just have to make sure you're winning that turnover battle. I'd put some heat on Fafita and see what you can do. And they can get after the quarterback at times. BYU can. So that's the plan for me. But I think the line at 3 is probably about right for what this, because Arizona's got more talent, but BYU has played as better as a team this year.
Iowa State and West Virginia. Nobody's gotten Iowa State yet. West Virginia, like you said, we're not really sure how good they are. Now they've lost 2 games to Penn State, and they lost to Pitt in a game they should have won, and both those teams are good. So clearly they're not that good, but they're still better than a lot of the teams in the Big 12. But Iowa State's been ridiculously efficient. Is this the week that somebody jumps up and bites Iowa State?
Yeah, this is about, this is going to test like how good that Iowa State defense is, because it's a run-heavy team. They want to run the ball first and foremost. So we'll get a good test up front for Iowa State to see how up to the challenge that front is. And I think they've just been like so consistent this year about like what they want to do. You know, pair of running backs, they've run them pretty well. Offense, the job is to stay on schedule. And I think West Virginia, like they are going to be a coin flip team. Right, they've played Oklahoma State game wasn't very close, but they played a close game against KU, played a close game against Pitt. It feels like when it's pretty even, they're going to be a coin flip game. And I kind of like West Virginia in the spot just because I like their playmakers, at least their quarterback as a playmaker, a bit more. Rocco Becht is kind of the more you hope to have a more dependable type situation, but I would not want to give West Virginia the ball a chance to win a game because I like Garrett Green's chances in a lot of those moments. So I'm going to take the better quarterback. I'm going to go West Virginia at home.
All right. Wow. There you go. There's that's the second person we've had on the show today that's leaning for the Mountaineers. Finally, Josh, this one is one that's befuddled me all week. Kansas State the favorite, Colorado a home dog, 3.5 points. Late night, 9:15 Central Time kickoff for the Wildcats and the Buffaloes. Is this the game where Colorado shows that, like, maybe they're really, really for real? Or is this the game where maybe Kansas State shows that they're a step ahead in their development?
Do you think Colorado can stop the run, Paul?
They did-ish against UCF. They played a complete game. I just think that this might be a bit of a different animal. I
do too. I think that the K-State – if they stop the run against both UCF and K-State, all right. Let's talk. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we saw it against Nebraska, and I don't like their chances of doing that back-to-back weeks. Because like if they start doing something in back-to-back weeks that we've known has been a huge problem for them, like the conversation about Deion changes because all of a sudden it's completely changed. They've had this knock on them now for 16, 17 games while he's been there, and all of a sudden, like, is it supposed to flip? So I would say that they're probably not that team. I would say that's my thought, is they're probably not that team. That's why I like K-State in this game. Now, the one thing that Colorado's got is a great trump card in Travis Hunter, and Shedeur has been really, really good this year as well. So K-State's secondary is going to get tested in this game, and we'll see how good they are. But if K-State can control pace and limit possessions, then you like their chances. Because if you just make Colorado possessions more stressful on them, I think it's really hard because they can't run the football. And so I think that makes it a bit more of a challenge for them. So I think K-State will be able to run the ball. I like them in this game.
I like them a lot too. I think I'm a big Avery Johnson fan. I'm president of the Avery Johnson fan club. I have been for a very long time. So I like what they do. I like what they're like where they're living. So I'm going to pick them. Although if they let Shadur Sanders out of the well, like it can get crazy, especially when you've got those wide receivers. They do. They're not great in the secondary this year at Kansas State. So that's where I think this game can get wild. I think it's going to be very high scoring.
Yeah. And I think regardless of pace, it will be. Is it going to be just a million possessions, turnovers, all that kind of stuff, like high scoring, like, punt block and pick six and, stuff like that? Or is it going to be like a low possession high scoring where it's like, well, the first 5 possessions of the second half were all touchdowns by either team? I think that's my kind of question, is what kind of scoring do we have? Because if K-State's controlling pace and Colorado's playing from behind, not saying they can't, but the problem that you have is, like, I want to be, if I'm in a situation where I am going back and forth with the team, I want the option to slow things down. Mm-hmm. And that the run game gives you that if you can do it. Colorado has not consistently shown that they've got that. And so that's why I'd favor K-State if it is a scoring game, a high scoring game as well.
Yeah, I think so. What are your thoughts as we hurtle towards the playoff? We're at the halfway point. Where do you think this league is going? It still, to me, looks like a one-bid league for the playoff, especially given I think the chaos last week in the SEC benefits them as opposed to hurts them, where chaos in the Big 12 hurts them and not benefits them.
Yeah, you have to ask, though, like, who's the second team, right? I mean, there's an argument at this point in time that, like, whoever wins the Big 12 might not get a 1 seed, like might not get a bye. I mean, if Boise runs the table and they hammer teams the way they have been, it depends on who the Big 12 champion is and what the record is, but like, is a 11-2 Big 12 champion, let's just say Utah. I mean, I think they probably get the benefit of the doubt, but like, what if it's Iowa State? What if it's a team like that? Like, are they gonna get the benefit of the doubt in that situation? So, I mean, I'm not even thinking 2 bids. I think it's a 1 bid league for sure. And it's just because, and I mentioned this too, like, it's not all the Big 12's fault. 2 of the biggest non-conference games that we had this year, 2 of the biggest, but like the 2 that were, non-con games, Baylor and Utah, and then K-State and Arizona. Those were both non-con games. So those teams, which were actually towards the top of the league, didn't get to challenge themselves out of conference because, like, their challenging non-con game was somebody who was in their conference. And for a league it's all jumbled up and mixed up, that's just a huge kind of detraction. You just didn't have an opportunity to score any points in that situation, in my opinion. So, like Oklahoma State's big one was Arkansas. They won the game, but then they've cratered since then, right? I mean, West Virginia has a big non-conference game. They didn't get the job done. KU didn't beat Illinois. So it was a little bit mixture of both. Like, I'd love to have K-State and Utah be able to play teams out of the league that were pretty good. Mm-hmm. They just didn't get the opportunity to do so. And I think that hurts the league.
Yeah. What do you think about some of these national games like Red River, Oregon, Ohio State, and all that this week?
Like Ohio State, Dan Lanning is not, I mean, he'll be a great coach eventually, but he has not done it yet. And I'm rooting for 2 Big 12 alums, Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel. More partial to Will Howard just because the conversation around Will Howard makes no sense to me. Like, it's like nobody watched him at K-State. Like, they're like, I heard somebody today say, I've heard he's not, he's basically the same level passer as Kyle McCord, not Syracuse Kyle McCord, Ohio State Kyle McCord. I'm like, no, I think he's a little bit better. He's one of those guys where he can throw it all over the field. He's got a good arm. I've heard people say, somebody heard today, Dylan Gabriel's more athletic than him. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't believe that either. So I don't know if people understand Will Howard. And also that offense for Ohio State has been like fits and starts. And then last week they kind of opened up the floodgates, and they had done that in the past too. So I like them. I like them at home or on the road, excuse me. Red River, Texas. I think they control the line of scrimmage. I think they get after a young quarterback. Doesn't matter who the quarterback is for OU. It's going to be a young quarterback. So I feel pretty good in that one. And then LSU and Ole Miss at night is you want to talk about toss-up where weird things might happen. That is the ultimate in that situation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who am I? Oh, LSU and Ole Miss. I'm going to ask you one last one because Garrett, obviously the LSU fan, and needs to hear as many reassuring things as he can, but no one has given him one yet today.
Why should we? They can't run the ball and they can't stop anybody. Although, like their passing attack, man, it always gives them a chance to win games.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see. Like, I wonder if the LSU defense gets any better. And I know Harold Perkins is awesome, but like, do you get better because they just didn't know what to do with him? And it's almost like now, you're going to replace it with just guys where it's like, all right, we just kind of know what we want to do with the personnel. So maybe that makes them a bit better. And also, I know that like that freshman running back they put in against South Carolina kind of saved their tails. But yeah, man, I think Kevin hadn't beaten anybody either. So it's just, and Brian, like I'm a huge Brian Kelly guy. He's not been that good recently though. So this is one of those where you just sit back and just watch it get chaotic, watch it get weird. And it was an amazing game last year too.
Yeah.
I got nothing to reassure you, Garrett. I would take LSU plus the points at home. But I would not feel good about that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 watch. Go watch him. Absolutely. He's one of our favorite guests. Josh, you doing a high school game tonight or you have a bye week?
Pulaski Academy versus Bryant tonight. Actually, pretty good game. So
all right. Well, good one. All right. Have a good time tonight. Josh Neighbors, Big 12 watch. When we come back, it's the top 5. This is 365 Sports. Neighbors.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome to Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Hey, we're almost done. You can go back to your regularly scheduled life now of not watching our show because as soon as this is over, I'm going to say goodbye, and you're free to be social and live your lives like human beings. And again, go to TexasBeefHouse.com or BidOnBeef.com. Make sure you use promo code 365Sports. We heard a lot about Project Rudy this week and the proposed Super League from 3 former Disney executives and former Notre Dame AD Jack Swarbrick. They're working on keeping 70 Power 4 teams together in a league that has financial relegation to it and all that. But I'm going to give you my top 5 Project Rudy questions starting right now with number 5. What does the G5 think about this? Even though it may not matter what they think because these schools are going to break away regardless, there's got to be some politicking and there's got to be some setup for them in their own league and their own playoff. So can there be enough political support for 2 separate leagues within Division I of college football or the FBS level of college football right now? Can that happen, and can it happen smoothly? That I wonder about. I think this is ultimately a minor bump in the road if they wanted to do this. There are much more major bumps in the road, but even still, the G5 schools are going to try to have their say in all of it because they've got to protect their own interests as well, and a breakaway is not necessarily good news for them. Number 4, how do the other 2 feel about it? I'll just name the Sklar brothers here, ACC and Big 12. I'm sure that they have a lot of presidents that would be on board for something like this, especially to keep pace in an overall revenue shared model with the other 2 leagues. But how do they feel about it, and how passionately do they feel about it when it comes to making a super league? Is this something that they'd really want to push, or would they rather it stay more status quo because that benefits them? They can control that a little bit more. I don't know. I would assume that they'd be more for something like this, but again, you're talking about, 33, 34 other schools. They're going to be making this decision to jump into a super conference. There's probably not consensus among them, and how do they get there is a huge, huge question. Number 3, are the numbers real? A $9 billion cash infusion, $3.5 billion up front to help buy out the schedules and reshuffle the deck, so to speak. But private equity is always going to come in and say, like, hey, we've got this much money, here's how much infusion. Are those numbers real? Is it something that they have on hand, that they can raise, that the TV networks are fine with? Is all that real? Now, I don't think that this group is coming up and saying they've got $9 billion when they don't, because you have to deliver on those things. But is it real enough to the TV networks? Are they okay with this plan? How does that all work with it? Well, because they will be showered with some money, and especially those other 2 I just talked about, a lot of those schools would be first in line to say, yes, we would love a piece of that $3.5 billion when it comes to making us whole again, house settlement, and all that. Number 2, is there a consensus for what the future is? I don't know. That's my biggest question about the leaders of college football. What do they want it to be? I think the biggest problem is you have a lot of leaders of college football who want it to be what it was. Well, they've got to get out of that mode because it's never going to be what it was again. So what do you want it to be? What can you make it? Where can it go that benefits the maximum amount of people? And we know that that's not necessarily shared among everybody. So there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, 70 to be exact, when it comes to institutions and deciding what they want the future to be when it comes to Project Rudy, if that were even a thing that could happen. And I really don't think that it's going to, because of what our number 1 reason is going to be. Number 1, can you convince the Power 2, still represented here by Monty Burns and mostly Greg Sankey? I think Tony Petitti has enough presence in his league that will want this to happen, because there is a theoretical day in the future, which I don't think is that far-fetched, where Ohio State says, we need to be getting more money than Rutgers, or Alabama says, we need to be getting more money than South Carolina. Those things are real possibilities, given the fact that it's me first, me first, me first in athletics now. So can you convince the Power 2 that not only is it not going to be me first, me first, me first, that there's other schools that you're going to be taking along with you that now fall into the South Carolinas or the Vanderbilts or the Northwesterns of the world that don't make as much money for the conference as the big boys do? That is the biggest sell. That's exactly what Greg Sankey said he didn't want to do, is he didn't want anybody else to draft off of the SEC. So how do you convince Greg Sankey? How do you back him into a corner and convince him that for the good of college sports that this needs to happen? I don't know if you can. He's pretty well set in his ways, and he's pretty much told us what the goal is. So the only way that this happens is if Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey get on board with a plan, which they might just take the framework from this, leave private equity out of it, and do it themselves. Who knows? But these are all questions that we have to ask when it comes to Project Rudy. That is the top 5, and now it's the weekend. Adios.